It is indeed a pleasure to have this privilege to play here for you. We intend to give you a very fine program, so just settle back, relax, and enjoy the moment.
Check. Mic check. 1 2 1 2. Very tenuous setup. I ain't even gonna lie, trying to get in focus. What's up? Trying to get in focus. Trying to make sure y'all can hear me. You watching live or you watching later? Let me see how I used to do this. Hold up. How I used to do this. Yeah. Well, we'll get in focus eventually. What's up, B-Man? What's up, Debbie? What's up, little mama? I'm out of focus. Hold on, y'all know. I'm going to take a minute just to try to get in focus. It's probably because my face is brown. The background is not as brightly lit as it typically is. Y'all don't even want to know. This Bon Jovi song is playing in my head because we are living on a prayer. We're halfway there, though. The desk is on its way. What up, Justin? What up? Justin, I don't even know if you like NBA. That's just a universal sports call. Hoo-hoo. Because guess what? Your girl is the Docina Sucia 2021 champion, okay? 2021-2022 fantasy football champion. That's right, I'm in a very competitive 12-team PPR league. We've been in the business. We've been in a league for over 10 years. It's comprised of mostly Philly Eagles fans, a couple of Jets fans, and maybe a couple of Steeler fans in there. It's very hostile to Giants fans, okay, and to, non-Philadelphians. However, we reign supreme. I will be getting a championship belt, and I will be telling the rest of my league mates to suck it. I'm so obnoxious. I won. Y'all, we talking, we play. Let me just say it like that. We play. I don't want to jam myself up. I don't quite know the whole betting laws in South Carolina, but we play. You lost? Oh, you lost last night? I won by 30 points, Justin. Oh my gosh. Yes. It's okay. I've muted the chain. I've muted it. We are good. B-man. That was like the highlight of my weekend. Let me just tell y'all real quick. All right. I rested for over 72 hours. I took a break from Ben and Trudy. I took a break from everything. Like, I took a break from everything. New Year's, I hope you all had a very safe or maybe festive. Maybe you stayed home like I did. I ain't go out much at all. Omicron got me tripping. I just don't want to make anyone else sick. Chiefly my parents. Just wanted to stay. I was such a homebody. I've never been this much of a homebody as I was over the last 72 hours. But I just really wanted to be safe and kind of just self-contained and work on some things here and whatnot. And I feel great. I hope y'all had a great sports. I know, Nicole, you love it. I hope y'all had I hope folks had a good New Year's, safe holiday season, kind of wrapping up a little bit. I'm trying to think how many holidays are left over. Yeah, I mean, I know the tail end of Kwanzaa, but anyway, I really do hope people are rested and ready to just continue to just show up for community. I did think about this. So in preparation, both yesterday and this morning, in preparation for today's live stream, if you got the newsletter, you already saw the content warning. If you saw the teaser on Twitter, the Streamlabs teaser that goes out before I hit go, before I hit live, you also saw a content and trigger warning there. I want you to know that we will be talking about domestic violence. It will definitely color our conversation substantially, but we're also going to talk. I think what I'm trying to do is facilitate a conversation around police violence, mapping police violence, tracking police violence, the data. There was a data dump, and I'm calling it that. On December 30th, the Charleston Police Department released some really interesting, by interesting I mean very limited data regarding kind of like their year in review type of deal. The Charleston Police Department is very, very prone to releasing data that really isn't specific. I really didn't pay attention to certain data points released by local law enforcement until the CNA audit. The CNA audit illuminated a number of things for me. It illuminated that there wasn't that much data collection going on in terms of things like use of force, which is one of my biggest concerns, well documented on OM and otherwise in other areas. But like you see that there's a culture of I'm just gonna give it to you, y'all take it, and like okay, let me not oversimplify, and let me not also take too much of a jab at our local media landscape, right? But I will say this: never have I really been in a place. Let me not. I sound so hyperbolic when I say never, but it's staggering to me. It's noticeable that sometimes the police can offer up any type of information they want and it not be questioned. Now, I know that like for newspaper reporters, we're not going to see that exchange of questions and back and forth that comes with building a story, but I would say based on what I've seen, what I've gleaned, what I've observed, there isn't that healthy culture of pushback and challenging or really, really strong follow-up questions for a myriad of reasons, right? Some folks just like to be less transparent. Some institutions prefer to be less transparent. But I really do want to get Charleston to a place, I want to get y'all to a place where you expect more from your news outlets in terms of follow-up questions. Now, I don't have a bunch of answers. What I like to say is that I help people distill the issues, at least from a leftist lens or from a progressive left-leaning lens. And hopefully I'll be introducing you to voices who might have some answers, some thoughts, some theories on how to really address things like police violence, like data dumps, and like deciphering police data, right? So what I do is I'm going to do what I've been doing, which is, hey, we don't have this here yet, but there are some other areas that resemble this region, that resembles Charleston, that are actively working to hold police accountable and to also interrogate police data and push back on the narratives that the data typically allows them to spin. And I'm not saying that all the time police do this, right? I'm not painting it with that broad of a brush, but what I would offer is here you have a pretty much, the police said it, so I believe it culture. Now I'm saying that while I'm going to lift up some really good reporting from the state newspaper. No, I don't have a preference. No, I don't think the state newspaper is better than Post and Courier. No, I think that they both do certain things really, really well. I think also they both got drama. They both got issues. They both got, ownership conundrums and stuff like that, right? Why am I talking my hands so much today? I don't know. Watched a lot of John Madden documentary. That's what it was. And he was very expressive. Not to be light and trivial. I'm just, y'all know how my mind works. But no. But like the state newspaper is not better or worse or nothing like that. I will say the state newspaper is built to do things a little bit different. It feels like from what I've read and reported, and also looking at some of the recruitment, this desk falls today, y'all. We're going to claim victory though. But I will say that like looking at the recruitment, some of the heavy hitters that move from the state to the Post and Courier, and then some heavy hitters that move from Post and Courier to the state, I see what they're trying to do in terms of course, who, claim the mantle of the state's newspaper, right? As the Post and Courier increases its footprint throughout the state and opens up bureaus all over, in the PD, upstate, all that. But I feel like the state newspaper is qualified, uniquely qualified to go a little bit deeper. And so I'm going to jump into, I said a lot of things. Let me just get into it. But I I honestly want to see the local reporting here in Charleston do better. So I'm gonna just take it back to the hopefully I did it in this channel. I just realized something. I might have been I did it right. Yeah, I think I did it right. Yeah, I did do it right. Okay, so I think I started to say something and I forgot to expound on it. Also, so if you got the I said this earlier. If you got the notification for today's live stream, you did see a trigger warning. I really do hope that people don't. Some feedback I've gotten, of course, like my profanity offends folks, which is fine. I expected that in the South. But some of the other feedback I get is that some of the content that I discuss or some of the topics that I discuss leave people feeling sad. Or, I don't, it's tough to really kind of engage with your content because it feels like a barrage of, I really hope that I leave people with a feeling of empowerment versus just complete and utter, like, some sort of like fatalistic or dystopian. Like, that's not what I do. I think a lot of people like that. I think a lot of people on the left really do like to commiserate over really shitty circumstances. I really do believe that people have become addicted to commiserating, and that's not what this is about. So while we'll talk about tough topics like police accountability, I really do hope that you feel empowered to say, you know what, I know a little bit more about this situation, or I know a little bit more about this topic, and I feel a little bit more prepared to be able to push back or to ask questions, or basically ask questions, right? I'm really trying to foster a culture of being like endlessly curious. I know, to the point where it's annoying, but I just think that's the best way to really, to me, that's my approach. So maybe I'm definitely biased, but that's my approach. And that's how I approach this stuff. So if this does feel heavy, of course, check out when you have to check out, come back when you have to come back, look at this later, but I really do hope that it makes people feel a little bit more empowered. So let me just go back to let me take it from the tippy top. This story came out, and I know the weather is real. The weather is real. People dealing with things, school delays, I'm sure. Of course. My bad, y'all. My bad. I could just do this. I don't know why. Ooh. I could just do this half the time. I don't even do that. Or just hit the mute button.
Sworn to protect and serve, but...
Okay, so this is the story we want to watch. So a couple days ago, let me read the copy real quick. So a couple days ago, it says published on December 30th, 2021. Updated shortly thereafter, Charleston, whatever. So let the story play. But the date was significant. So this was released, the story was published on December 30th. So right before New Year's Eve. That is important to keep in mind.
But every now and again, the public will complain about the actions of one of our members of Men and Women in Blue. Raphael.
And this is a very interesting. So this is just observation. Somebody can check me, collect me, whatever they need to do. If I got this wrong, right? But it feels as if there are two figures within media who are trustworthy, who I trust. I'm not challenging their integrity, y'all. Please don't get me wrong, right? But there are, and I'm sorry for the shade and shadows, y'all. The death situation will get improved soon. But there are two prominent black figures within local media that have a lot of credibility and a lot of trust associated with them, and that's Raphael James and that's Caroline Murray. I think with both of them, though, what I've seen them do is walk this line where they position the police as imperfect, but what do you call it? Just they don't challenge police power. They don't challenge the history of the institution as much. I think what they do is they try to find stories, or at least they become the face of stories where they're a little bit more sympathetic toward police. And I understand that on a very basic level as a black person in Charleston. I kind of get it. It reminds me of something that Septima Clark was quoted as saying back in, I believe, if not the 70s, the 80s, about the cultural policing and policing being more diverse. Like, it reminds me of something she said back then about being grateful for more black cops, right? And it made me scratch my head after seeing so much violence perpetrated against black bodies in South Carolina, especially during the Civil Rights Movement, and especially in the rural South in pockets like Wadmalaw, which had huge police overreach. But it struck me as odd even for its time, but it also colors what I think is the experience of being Southern and black and dealing with policing. I said a lot. I said a lot, right? B-Man, you dropped in the chat, imperfect but necessary seems to be the mainstream take on police. Exactly. And that's the thing, like policing, holding our communities accountability, being able to atone for crimes committed. I don't want to use too much carceral language, but you get what I'm saying. Like, it can look different. We can reimagine what this looks like because this thing is operating the way it's supposed to operate. It was founded and created to do what it's doing now. Anyway, so yeah, I kind of bloated it a little bit, but you get my point. And I kind of feel like this is the tone, like going back to the Caroline Murray and Raphael James part. Again, I still trust them. I still trust them implicitly. Like, I trust them a lot. I trust their voices. They've always shown themselves to be very professional, and they reach out to community to help craft their stories and inform their work often and diligently. But this right here just felt really empty. And for a 1 minute and 25 second hit, I expected a little bit more critical thinking and less, but the data suggests some good things. I don't know. To me, is weird.
Sworn to protect and serve, but every now and again the public will complain about the actions of one of our members,
rightfully so,
Men and Women in Blue. Raphael James took a look at the numbers released from the City of Charleston's Internal Affairs Office.
The Professional Standards Division of the Charleston Police Department tracks and investigates every single allegation that comes in against CPD officers. In the spirit of transparency, the city has released the data on those complaints from about January to September of this year. During that period, there were 555 complaints and investigations against city officers, ranging from abuse of authority to the use of illegal drugs. More than a third of them were sustained or found to be valid. 31 times, officers were accused of improper.
All right, now I'm gonna be like a defensive coordinator watching game film or whatever. I'm gonna mute it real quick and I'm gonna play. So right here, so you got these data and statistics, right? And then, okay, sirens, right? You see this? I'm muting on purpose, right? And then you got this was a deliberate choice, right? And why is this important this morning, Mika? It's important because we have to stop assuming that we got to stop gifting law enforcement with credibility that they have not earned. And we have to start really looking at the data and like seriously, I'm no statistician. Did I say the word right? I'm no data wonk, right? Right. But seriously, can we stop like being satiated with piss poor ass? I'm gonna pull up these graphics myself, and this shit is just a plug and play. Like this is just, I don't have a Microsoft suite of products on this computer, right? Like, I mean, I'm running on Windows, but you get what I'm saying. I don't have Word and Excel and shit. But even I can tell that this is a plug and play. Like you just put in certain data points or certain details and a graph pops up and makes it look a little bit more fancy schmancy, and it's not. But this choice of B-roll by CBD is very disappointing. Excuse me, not WCBD. Right, whatever. Channel 5, Live 5 News. Sorry, I'm thinking of Channel 2. But no, but this choice of B-roll in the back, like their choice to make this transparent, make the data transparent, and then have a backdrop of police with batons, I think is very interesting, especially coming from the rebellion that was the rebellion of 2020 following the George Floyd murder. I thought this was really goofy. I really think this is a goofy choice. Yeah, let me unmute it.
Or found to be valid. 31 times, officers were accused of improper vehicle operation. Nearly 40% of the time, those allegations came back sustained. They are supposed to wear body cameras. 16 investigations for failure to use body camera equipment. 11 times it was determined that the officer did not. That's 68% of the time. Now, not all of the data was about misdeeds of officers. In fact, there were hundreds of times citizens and supervisors recognized them for doing the right thing. 271 officer compliments were recorded during that time frame.
I don't care about Employee of the Month.
Raphael James, Live 5 News.
Yeah, I don't care about Employee of the Month. Right. So this is not, oh, Mika, you want to find data, you want to find stories that demonize police. No, this would have been great if the data was I hold the police to a way different standard than the general public, right? So that's one thing. But if the data was like popping, if the data was saying something, I would probably be like, okay, this may be not even worth mentioning on a mic'd up live stream. But then when you take a closer look, so let's open up the data if we can. I screenshot it just in case the city wanted to be cute, but they ain't that deep. Let me see. I got mad thumbnails. I'm trying to find the here we go. City of Charleston. Yeah. Right. All right. So police data department right here. And so Raphael James just do we get the stats on Publix employees doing their job? Right. Always stats. Police. I'm telling you, right. And the police think they're cute little mama, right? And L Cool J, you said compliments to police, right? Not Yelp. But exactly. What the fuck I give a fuck about? Hey officer, thanks for not lumping me up this stop, this disproportionately black stop. Like I don't like. All right. Anyway, so the police is what I just clicked on was professional standards dashboard, which just takes you to a Microsoft. I don't know what kind of plugin this is. What is this? Microsoft Power BI. So something. Anyway, that's what I looked at. So this is the graph, or this is the verbiage that Live 5 News chose to kind of like overlay with a lot of other stuff, so you can't really read it. You can't even really blow it up either, right? So I can't make this larger for whatever reason. Whatever plugin they're using is trash. As per usual. All right, it's the mission of the Office of Internal Affairs within the Professional Standards Division, the PSD. Interesting, I guess, not acronym, acronym. PSD, just missing a T there. It's the mission. Let me be serious. It's the mission of the Office of Internal Affairs within the Professional Standards Division, PSD, to ensure public confidence in the department through objective and thorough investigations of allegations of employee offenses, right? And so that's why it's also like that's the kind of the golden objective of what it's supposed to do. I'm not going to read the rest of that because it's just bullshit verbiage, but I want you to take a look at this. This is the three-page data, right? So page 1 was just an explanation. Right. Let me just read the second part. To help become more transparent with community, the Charleston Police Department has published data regarding the Office of Internal Affairs. The data dashboard depicts information in relation to internal and external investigations, investigation allegations, investigation depositions, and compliments. The data presented within this dashboard from January 1, 2020 up until the most recent quarter. Right. So that's it. It has a scroll feature, but that's it, right? So then that's page 1 of the data, right? Get ready to get your socks knocked off. Psych. So this page 2, investigations. No key, no like little key at the bottom. No, let me click on stuff. Let me not. Oh, I'm clicking on officers. I'm clicking on sustain. I'm clicking on officers. I'm clicking on complaints. I'm clicking on this. Let me click on this. All right. It just that just narrows the data. So that's all that's doing, right? Investigation type, right? So again, though, but for the uninitiated, this will satisfy people's curiosity, right? And this is something that, again, I have yet to find. I've yet to read in any of the books that y'all either gifted me or on my own. I've yet to find a term for this. Like, to me, it's akin to what I see Instagrammers do. They try to like emotionally manipulate sometimes, and just even the ones we like, do this emotional manipulation thing, which I call, which is not my own phrase, but I've heard this in conversation. I've called it strategic vulnerability, right? So it's when you offer up vulnerability and in a way to like emotionally like manipulate, or to get to have someone see you a little softer, to have someone see you as a little bit, okay, they're being transparent, they're being candid, okay, I can trust them, they're doing things like I do, they're saying things like I would, like trying to be relatable. The cops are really good at that, but I don't know what a technical term for it is, because they did this with the audit as well. So some of y'all, I'm like, oh wow, the police, not y'all literally, but some folks is like, oh wow, the police released this audit where they admit to racial bias. That's halfway. That's half the battle. No, it's not half the fucking battle. It's actually playing like that's your defense is your offense. right? Your offense is your defense kind of thing, right? And it's also a tactic where we throw out the red meat to distract you, to make you think that we're actively working on these things that we've lifted up. And in all the actuality, they're just giving lip service to it, right? They're not really solving the problems. They're not even really addressing it. Shit, in the instance of the police, they let go of what's her name? Domino's Pizza Tracker. They let go of Wendy Shriver, very quietly. Shout out to y'all who put me on, and then the Post and Courier printed about it later. But they let go of Wendy Shriver, who was brought in for the specific purpose to address the racial issues. The issues were lifted up in the racial bias report, but without a word or a whisper. She was just let go, and the details surrounding her dismissal or her stepping down are really shrouded in a lot of mystery. Why am I bringing this up when I'm looking at a bunch of data and graphs? Because even that, right? Even that action of going out and then launching this search and finding the right white woman cop to help the cops become accountable when it comes to race relations. It was a peculiar move at the word go. But let's say you are satisfied with Wendy Shriver. Let's say, okay, Wendy's hire really made you feel really good. What was she doing the whole time? No one can tell me. So my point is, you can wave around all the things you want to wave around about, transparency, graphs, look at the data. Look at how simple this data is. You literally probably plugged in, and I ain't being funny. Literally probably plugged in, and I don't mean plug in like specific, probably plugged in about 10, I'm being generous, 10 bigger, not even. So you got 3 areas, right? Supervisor complaint intake, internal investigation, external investigation. That's 3 areas. So that's 3 big old pots of data. And then you're not even drilling it down. It's just 3. Let's go to the slide number 3. Maybe it's going to knock your socks off. Slide number 3. It's going to really dig deep. It's going to really give you, oh shit, okay. All right, we've got more numbers, but we just got tallies, right? And it's really interesting on what's, it's really interesting. Let me see what the highest tallies are. I saw something with 3 digits right here. Courtesy and customer service. Again, I can't make this larger, y'all, so I apologize. Wait, hold on. Let me see it. Hold on. I can make it a little bit larger. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Let's see if I can. Nope. All right. So you can't see all this. It's a bunch of just things you would they got these fields from something else. Look at that. Criticism and malicious gossip. 1 allegation. Bias profiling. 5 allegations. Attention to duty. No clarifiers, no nothing, no drop downs to let you know what attention to duty is, right? Excessive or unreasonable force. 6, right? 6 officers, 6 allegations. How many was sustained? Excessive force. 0 sustained. Get the fuck out of here. This shit is a bunch of bullshit. Now, seriously, on a real note, this is where I get angry. This is playing in my motherfucking face right here, right? So not only is let me read what y'all saying, right? Not only is I'm gonna get into the chat in a second. Not only is the data underwhelming, right? There's no key. There's no little explainer. There's no drop downs. There's no illuminated links to help you with clarify. So y'all threw this up. Y'all got somebody's wife from the police department to do this real quick in between her sessions at Phoenix University online. Not shade, but yeah, shade. Like, y'all really just got somebody whose wife used this type of software at their job, and then she just came in like, I got you, babe, and here's 600 allegations, and we're just gonna make the 600 allegations look like 1,000, or make the 600 allegations all look like one thing when they're not. So it's very lackluster, very underwhelming, but this is on brand. Again, if you were following Wendy Shriver from the CNA audit all the way to Wendy Shriver's onboarding and quiet dismissal, you'll notice that this is how the police kind of traffic, right? Excuse me, let me use the right word. This is how they move. This is their modus operandi, I guess. Very underwhelming, very just piss poor data. What's up, Joy? All right, let me go back up. All right, that's what Morning Joy was the last comment I just saw. Nicole, yeah, I said about the Publix, right? Thanks for not killing us yesterday, right? In response to the compliments they got. Like it's Chick-fil-A. And remember, that's why you can't ignore the whole Chick-fil-A. Hey, we want to reach out to Chick-fil-A to get customer service. That's really what they want. Again, y'all hear me say this a lot. The charm offensive is real. Like basically they will charm you into really shitty policy in Charleston and South Carolina. They'll use that Southern charm to charm you into thinking that things are a little bit more solid than they are. It's like this a really concerted effort to launch a charm offensive about courtesy and customer service. But that ain't the issue. The issue is how we go about policing here. And the bigger issue I have as of late, so of course police accountability, right? That's the thing I'm really passionate about speaking to, and I think the press needs to do better with that. But not just police accountability, like in that broad sense, but like calling just calling it out as it is. Anyway, let me keep reading. I know what I'm trying to say, but I'm not saying it well. Nicole, you said something earlier, little mom. You said, yeah, we got bias. Make us do something about it. Hello?
Yeah, listen.
I mean, that's what it feels like. Hey, okay. Joey said, good morning. El Cool J says, Wendy was presented to public many times and she was hired, right? We CPD are responding. Then it was silence. And that's the sleight of hand that they play, y'all, is they'll do a lot of things that look very, very just loud and big, and they have a lot of fanfare associated with these high profile hires. But then what we don't ever see, we don't see the progress. There's less transparency around them. But now, and you can go to YouTube and watch all those community, city-led community committee. That committee, I can't remember the name, but it's supposedly constructed of community figures and whatnot. And you'll see Kylon, he'll pop up here and now and again, but he never tell you that, how much money he's getting paid by CPD to do the work that he's doing. I'm not saying the brother shouldn't get paid, but we need to, you work for the police. You literally work for the police, Kylon Middleton. So I'm not really going to listen to you on police accountability when they stroking you a check. I'm good on that. Over 50 G's, right? I'm good on that. And other groups like Kylons, not just Kylons, but other groups as well. But anyway, very underwhelming plug-in. Very underwhelming. Very underwhelming. When you see, I'm telling you, I hold police to a different standard, basic, on a basic level. But then I'm gonna have to just be a little self-indulgent and go a little bit off topic for a second, because I can't. But that data is police. Police has I don't even know what the percentage of the budget is of the city, but the police budget is the largest budget line item in the city budget, right? And you just expect more if we're pouring in all those resources, right? And they've done all this evaluation since the audit was released in 2019. You just expect more, hire someone like CNA to put together your graphs. How much extra would that have been to reach back out to CNA and say, hey, we've updated, this metric, or we've addressed this thing that you helped us look into. Can you help us put together a comprehensive, a data, a slide deck, right? And going off topic a little bit, but this is what Pratt students did with us for free. For free. This is Pratt Institute students. Now, granted, I'm sure they use some of the research and information to help their work, but these are students, right? Granted, graduate level, but look at us going. There's a timeline. There's photos. There's citations of sources missing. There's look at this. So you can't go to the police enjoys a rather cozy relationship with CFC. So there were no professors, there were no departments, there's no program, no criminal justice program that you couldn't have partnered with to create. You knew that people were gonna be looking at this data. I would assume, but see, no. Let me not. I forgot. We didn't have a summer of racial reckoning. I forgot. I'm sorry. I was acting like the protests in the streets were actually going to amount to something. I'm sorry. Anyway, you're right. They knew that people would not look. They bank on the fact that people would not look closely at the data. But I'm just looking through just like students putting together like dope data and breaking it down so you see specifics, right? I mean, I expect more. Like, this is just a frame of reference, completely different subject matter. This is Friends of Gadsden Creek. This is about TIFs and Horizon and all that. But look at this. Like, and if I collapse it, you'll see like, you know, notes on slides and whatnot. Look at this. Like it's crazy. It's crazy. Like what you don't get from the police. If somebody knows that like a roundabout percentage of the police budget as it pertains to the entire city budget, I really love it if you could drop it in there, right? Right. Let me see what's going on. All right. Wendy was presented. Yeah. I remember that. Acknowledgement is not accountability. Thank you. The mere mentioning of a thing, Joy, to your point, Joy, is not analysis at all, right? And that's the thing that I think a lot of like people can get really comfortable with is like, oh well, you know, they said it, so that's not analysis. That's how y'all getting fooled by some of these influencers out here in political spaces who just mention something and is thought of as thoughtful analysis. And while you do need people to distill issues and you need artists and whatnot and a cacophony of voices to highlight an issue, I would think that we put a little bit too much on people just saying the words. And I'm talking about somebody who's been in political spaces where that tactic is overused quite often. So what I want to do is take us back to a conversation. So tie it back to South Carolina and the overall culture. We're going to talk about domestic violence in a minute, but just want to talk about police accountability and those lackluster stats that were released right before the holiday, right for the New Year's Eve holiday by CPD, and just kind of bring it back a little bit so we understand what we're fighting for. What we're fighting for and what's in the way, specifically around the George Floyd bill that stalled in the Senate, right? It passed the House, I believe, and it stalled in the Senate. This was the George Floyd policing reform bill was designed to do a bunch of things to bring about police accountability. It was hogwash from gate. Cory Booker's goofy ass is out there running around here. Y'all know how I feel about Cory. Y'all should know. Y'all should know. Once I saw Cory and Tim Scott on the same thing, I'm like, man, these are just, man, please. So I'm gonna play the more succinct version. We watched, I think together, we almost watched the entire interview with Tim Scott about how the talks broke down between Democrats and Republicans. But I'm gonna try to choose the shorter clip and see if it. I think it does. It covers pretty much the broad strokes of what we covered previously. So this is what I'm trying to help you understand is perhaps a mindset throughout the state of South Carolina, red-held states that are less than anxious to really address the inequities or to the injustices caused by policing, modern-day policing. So we'll get to it.
Agenda item for President Biden. The bipartisan push for police reform following the killing of George Floyd collapsed last week when Democrats, led in the Senate by New Jersey's Cory Booker, ended talks with Republicans.
And also, this is from September. So just for time reference, this is when the story broke. This is when the bill collapsed. Again, it got through the House, of course, but stalled in the Senate.
Republicans. President Biden laid the blame on Republicans, saying they rejected enacting modest reforms, which even the previous president had supported. We spoke earlier with the top Republican negotiator, South Carolina Senator Tim Scott. What happened? This country was supposed to be at a moment of reckoning at the relationship between police and the black community. Why did you miss the moment?
I'm not sure why they missed the moment. I've been at this table twice already. They've walked away.
So this is like, and I'm not calling. Please don't take this literally, but it's almost like an abusive boyfriend. And I do believe that our relationship with politics does feel like an abusive relationship, especially if you identify as a Democrat in this state. So please forgive me. I'm not being I'm not being fast and loose with this, but this is like there is an abusive quality to this roundabout when we're out here crying for justice, fighting for justice, screaming for justice, organizing for justice, right? And criminal justice reform and criminal justice or accountability. The abusive rhetoric to me is, oh, I try my best. I'm still here at the table. You're at a shitty table made of shit with shit legs and shit chairs, and you expect us to sit here and just revel and act like we don't smell the stench of shit, right? So Tim, you can constantly say that you're at the table, you're at a shitty table, and you won't even acknowledge some of the proposed reform, proposed reformation ideas or whatever, or proposed policy. A lot of that was adopted and accepted by the Trump administration. But this whole, I'm at the table, y'all left, you can leave, you should leave. You should leave abusive situations, you should leave untenable situations, you should leave situations that have no light at the end of the tunnel. You should always get up and leave and know your worth. So I don't know what this whole thing is. You should sit here and take this shit sandwich and I'm gonna force feed you, Democrats. No, we're not gonna actually, so to the Democrats' point, I'll give them that. No, we're not going to do that. We're not going to take just basic shit that you offer us. No.
Way twice. They did this a year ago. They're doing it again now.
Maybe you're blaming Democrats for the failure of police.
It's gaslighting. It's gaslighting. I don't know why I didn't just say that, but yeah, it's abusive though too. It's a very fucked up tactic, and it plays on people's emotions, and it discounts what's really at stake, people's lives.
I can't understand. Well, we should ask ourselves, how did we get here at all? It's the big blue cities where they have failed to pass policies that protect their most vulnerable communities.
Where y'all kidnapping governors or trying to?
Los Angeles, Cleveland, Portland, Seattle. This problem came to the federal government because of the failure of blue mayors and liberal city council members for us to get here. So what we've decided to do was to stay at the...
And the thing about this, and I know I'm gonna stop pausing it, but the thing about this appearance I've thought about at length was like Tim Scott, he had to find something to blame as opposed to something to defend. Like he tried to come out maybe defending his own actions or come out with ideas, but this whole blame blue cities, I thought that was a very interesting approach to what was supposed to be a bipartisan collaborative effort. But that shows you right there. Of course, Mitch McConnell's not going to gift any Democratic establishment or any Democratic administration with a win. So it's a game of obstruction as well, which Tim Scott is very familiar with, being from South Carolina, where obstructionist politics reigns supreme. But just coming out the gate blaming Dems for your feckless leadership on this issue is astounding.
Table. And look for common ground. We found common ground. We found common ground on military equipment. We found common ground on chokeholds. We found common ground on providing PTSD assistance and mental health and co-responders. We found common ground on a number of areas. Instead of moving forward on the areas where we were in agreement, they just simply walked away.
That's wrong.
But you just detailed all those points of agreement.
Yes.
Senator Cory Booker, who was your partner in this.
Yes.
This started under the Trump administration, it continued under the Biden administration.
Exactly.
When Republicans in control went nowhere, Democrats in control, it's going nowhere.
But both times, the folks that left the table were the Democrats. Let's just be clear that we have stayed at the table. We said simply this: I am not going to participate in reducing funding for the police after we saw major city after major city to fund the police. Many provisions.
So I want to stop it there because there's no need to continue to play it either. But that part right there was important as well. That whole defund the police, and we know that was a disingenuous framing of the actual argument, which there was no defunding. I don't know how reallocating or taking a second look at, y'all, they love talking about outcomes, and when it comes to schools, when it comes to healthcare, they love talking about, outcomes and they love talking about outcomes and being very frugal. Fiscally conservative is a thing, whatever that means. That used to get me. I used to believe in fiscal conservative shit, like conservatism is such a fucking misnomer. When it comes to things like healthcare and public schools, they can account for every dollar and every cent. But for some reason, looking at police budgets and going over that with a fine-tooth comb is just off limits. It's so weird to me, the cognitive dissonance that it requires to actually say this shit. And as a black man to say this shit on national TV with those socks is even more illuminating. What I wanted to do now is we talked about the data. We talked about how lackluster the data was as it was released from Charleston Police Department. But now what I want to do is kind of take a pivot to more like this larger issue of like there's no accountability and how big this issue is. So how I framed today's live stream. Let me go back to the thumbnail real quick. I realized that I have not been putting my logo on my thumbnails. It's bananas. All right, hold on. Okay, here we go. All right, so let me close out this window. All right, this is today's thumbnail, right? So deciphering police data and tracking police violence. So why did I start off with why did I talk about Tim Scott and the recent talks? Just to illustrate, for me, what was important is to illustrate the lack of political will around actually holding police accountable, and how, of course, Tim Scott being a prominent rising star within the Republican Party is noteworthy, in the fact that he hails from South Carolina. But more specifically, I think what Tim has communicated, at least to me, and maybe it's a reach, is that this is the popular opinion amongst a lot of people in power here in South Carolina, and we've seen this lack of political will to address this issue, this structural and systemic issue. We've seen it actually create massive problems when it comes to police violence themselves. So, Joy, I really felt seen, Joy, when you said last week, or you typed last week, about like how like work as a manager, like maybe in retail, really equipped you for a lot of like situational, like just some like gave you a leg up in certain situations, or made you feel like it helped you navigate things, right? And it really helped my leadership. Like I'm almost not embarrassed, but and my time with Target ended when it ended. It wasn't no big to do or nothing like that, right? And my time with Trader Joe's ended. I fucked up my knee. But other than that, like it was very like I liked Trader Joe's a lot. I liked it. I didn't like retail. I hated retail. Loved Trader Joe's. And I'm saying all that to say that my years of working in big box retail, in logistics and in store management, my time there really left me with one statement that is so transferable, is so universal, which is what gets measured gets managed, right? What gets measured gets managed. And so while our CPD, the one thing about the flimsy data that was released by CPD, if you're not measuring it, we can't manage it. If you're not measuring it in ways that actually are helpful and useful to not just the police, but to the general public and to those who are fighting for criminal justice reform. So like if you don't have the data points that we can point to and study, if you're not going to be honest and transparent, which we don't have that expectation, right? We know that we have to police the police. We know we have to monitor police, and we have to create systems and create institutions that actually gather this data, because we can't trust the police to be honest. My my one source, Slager planting evidence next to a dying Walter Scott, and then lying on the police report, right? You can't trust police to really be candid. There is a blue wall of silence. There is qualified immunity. Accountability is really tough. And so when the Charleston police released piss poor data that has no specificity, that doesn't really speak to any of the issues lifted up in the audit, that doesn't speak to any of the issues lifted up by area groups like ACLU and other justice advocates, it shows you that what gets measured gets managed, and what doesn't get measured will not get managed. And so that's what I'm trying to point people in the direction, like, hey, they're not measuring anything really specific. They're just rattling off a number of like key categories and putting a number next to it. We don't know how they arrived at those figures. We don't know where some of the numbers came from. We don't know if they use a certain think tank. We don't know if they use an internal department that works on statistics and data. We don't even have that. And from what I'm looking at, the answer is no. There is no real skilled member of the police department compiling this data data in a way that we can really understand the breadth of the issues within policing in South Carolina, in Charleston County. So I want to decipher it. I want to help us decipher the data. The first place to start is just to say the data is incomplete. And then also what's important too, police love telling us what they got on us. Police love saying what they got on us. How they watching us. Ooh, we got the binoculars set up over here. Ooh, we over here playing rock, paper, scissors with the kids in Gadsden Green. They love showing us, you know, where they pop up in our neighborhoods, but who's tracking the police? Who's tracking their violence? And so some things that I lifted up on the thumbnail was this recent reporting from the state newspaper. You see that thumbnail on the left. It says a decade of abuse. That story was published back in April, right? The same day as the data dump from police, the same day as the data dump from Charleston police, the state was doing this. Shout out to Travis, to David Travis Bland. Shout out to David Travis Bland with the state newspaper. I read this twice. This is from originally in April, updated in October. That's not even the one I was going to get to. Hold up. Here we go. I think this is it. Yeah. It's a shame. But shout out to David Travis Bland, right? So this was updated December 31st, but this was released by the state newspaper on December 30th, right? So as Charleston City Police or the Charleston Police Department releases that really weak data set in that slide deck or whatever it is. You can't even call it a slide deck. It's literally just 2 slides. South Carolina, this was published. South Carolina finishes 2021 above average in police officers charged with violence against women. Once again, South Carolina finishes 2021 above average in police officers charged with violence against women. Tamika, you're doing whataboutism. You're talking about incomplete data as it pertains to CPD, and now you're bringing up their dirt. No, I'm showing you what gets measured gets managed, right? And so I'm showing you too. This piece right here. This is the piece I read twice. This piece right here also illustrates like the why it's so important to ask critical questions or to lift up certain parts of the story. Last week I talked this is very unrelated, but you get but this is the conversation that the quick exchange that happened after the fact is important. So I try to catch people up on the bid, right, and the reporting. And I told you out the gate I didn't like the framing. I made a joke about, hey, Post and Courier reporters, blink twice if your editors took out key components of the story that actually tell the truth. Like, blink twice if you need help, if you need to float me some nuggets off the record, right? I was joking, but the framing of the bid proposal for King Street in Post and Courier, that framing for me was woefully incomplete and not accurate. And also, I would say anyone reaching out to Aaron Comstock for comment, it's just that was a curious decision. It was a curious decision, and so here to kind of compare apples to oranges, and it's kind of unfair to Emma. I felt like the reporting here was just more sound. I felt like the reporting here was just way more complete. LQJ in the chat, you says they're creating a new narrative out of a very different set of factual events. That's what I'm trying to pay attention to. All right, so let me just read this. So 13 South Carolina law enforcement officers were accused of committing, and I won't be able to read this in full. It's probably, if you read it by yourself, probably like 30 minutes. 20 minutes. So we're not going to be able to do that, but we're going to try to go over the most important parts of this article. And a lot of that is in the middle and the latter part, but I want to read the beginning. All right. So 13 South Carolina law enforcement officers were accused of committing violent crimes against women in 2021. The law enforcement officers, mostly everyday street cops, were all charged with some form of violence or harassment against women. Again, content and trigger warning, y'all, domestic violence. All right. In the previous years, an average of 9 officers were accused each year of committing similar crimes. In April, the state, and that's the story I clicked on initially, this is the April story right here, a decade of abuse, South Carolina police have an issue with violence against women. And remember, the Post and Courier won a Pulitzer Prize on documenting domestic violence in the state, and how South Carolina is always in the top 10 of women who lose their lives to their partners, to their male partners. So that, while that was very important journalism, I guess so much so that the Pulitzer Foundation found it to be, award-winning of that caliber, I would say that I would love to see more people drill down on where these sources of violence, like police violence, right? What this violence looks like. Why is it largely male? How does law enforcement factor in terms of how they investigate it, how they cover it up? And then when you look at the recent shenanigans going on with the sheriff's department, with the sheriff, the county sheriff, not just providing a cozy landing for an officer accused of misconduct and sexual harassment, not just providing him with a cozy drop off, like, hey, I'm gonna let you retire, I'm gonna let you leave, and I'm not gonna fire you, give you that black mark, right? But what was more alarming was Sheriff Graziano, a queer woman, right? A queer woman choosing to center the allegedly offending officer, right? Choosing to defend him, not once, not twice, but y'all have shared with me countless emails from Graziano that shows like this reflex that I think a lot of law enforcement contend with, which is, I'm going to defend the blue. I'm going to back the blue no matter what. And you saw her really, and in some instances it was strangely damning. Like, I didn't even know why she kept sending y'all these emails that would be screenshot, which I did, and which I still have. These, and y'all still have. Please keep on to them. Hold on to them. But it was just really weird to see an officer knowing how there's an issue with domestic violence. There's an issue with violence perpetuated against women. That like not reading the room. Sheriff Graziano didn't read the room at a very basic level. But it shows you that even Democratic, law enforcement, because that's a partisan position, even they can't shake that tendency to support the police officers no matter what. And so it makes you think, bringing it back to a data conversation, it makes you question, why are we not interrogating where some of this violence occurs? From who does it flow? From whom does it flow? What are the common denominators? When we look at this data, like, who's perpetuating the violence? Don't just tell me women are being killed disproportionately by men. Tell me why. Tell me who. Tell me, are there men's groups actively organizing in South Carolina to help restore the gun rights of men who have lost their right to have a gun because they were found guilty of some sort of felony assault, domestic violence, rape, whatever it is? Tell me more about that work of these groups and these law firms that are out here trying to get men who have a history of violence, get them more access to more weaponry, right? Right, expunging their records. Like, I just want to see more of that too. Like, it's really good to talk about the problem, the breadth of the problem, and all these statistics and men are killing women, but who? Which men? And I'm not asserting that police kill more women or harm more women. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying that within policing, it's a huge fucking problem. And we've seen both our Democratic law enforcement officials and our more conservative cover up countless times and refuse to submit the data, refuse to disclose the data points that really help us understand what this violence looks like. And it's not just violence against women, it's violence against poor people. Jamal Sutherland, it's violence against people with mental illness. You feel me? Use of force is a very huge issue. So much so, because I don't think it was a mistake that when the CNA audit came out in 2019, the CNA audit that was supposed to uncover the issues with race and disparities or racial disparities or racial inequities, that the police were being accused of, that audit did not have use of force data collection. And they said, oh, we just didn't have the certain apparatus in place. Bullshit. What gets measured gets managed. What gets measured gets managed. If you don't measure it, you can't manage it. You can just say, oh, my bad, we didn't collect it. Oh, we erased those the videos from those apprehensions. Oh, we erased the video from that stop. by the end of the week, within 7 days. We don't keep that. This is like a 7-Eleven in the 90s. We just keep recording over it, right? Like that literally, that's not literally, but that's how it felt, that the justification for not collecting certain data points sounded like to me. And it's that lie of omission, right? I'm going to liken a lot of this shit to relationships. It feels like it. But, there's sometimes that you can be with a partner who doesn't lie, but omits, doesn't explicitly lie, right? But omits a lot of things. And that's lying too, right? Oh, I didn't tell you the sky was purple. I just said, I don't know if it, I didn't tell you, just omitting certain things. No, I didn't lie to you. I kept it real with you. No, you didn't keep it real. What gets measured gets managed. And if you want to keep it real with me, you disclose data points that actually articulate the issue. What up, Joni? Happy New Year. Yeah, queer women don't always equal ally to straight women. We know yeah, you ain't her.
Now listen, right? And we're seeing that,
Joni, that's so funny you mentioned that, because this month we'll be discussing what does white solidarity look like? White feminism and solidarity, and where does it break down? We'll be discussing that virtually on the 27th via Zoom. Email to come out today. I'm so disappointed in myself because I didn't do it. All right, here we go. Let's get back focused again. Good morning, Deez. Good to see you. The article is South Carolina finishes the year out last year above average in police officers charged with violence against women. Let's get into it. All right. 13 South Carolina law enforcement officers were accused of committing violent crimes against women in 2021. To some people that might sound low, let me tell you, that is drastically underreported. Y'all know this. And if you read this article, the way I read this article, you know good and well that number is way bigger than 13. So, just guesstimating. All right, the law enforcement officers, mostly everyday street cops, were all charged with some form of violence or harassment against women. In the previous 10 years, an average of 9 officers were accused each year of committing similar crimes. In April, the state reported on the number of police officers accused or found guilty of crimes such as murder, domestic violence, rape, kidnapping, assault, stalking, and gun violence from 2010 to 2020. The vast majority of the crimes were committed while officers were off duty and were against a spouse or a romantic partner. This is why you can't have your Democratic sheriff out there talking about, his kids, his wife, his kids, his kids, his wife, his kids. Nah, his victims, his victims. That's what you really should be focusing on, but whatever, right? Right? That's why you can't have a cop out here centering the police in their best interest, right? So let me proceed. Okay, so yeah, I screwed it down. And this isn't the longer piece. The longer piece is the one from April. That's the one that's going to take you about 30 minutes to read. This one is not going to take you that long to read. All right, abuse survivor advocates and a public policy specialist said the average number of attacks is likely low. I just said that, right? Is likely low and doesn't give an accurate picture, is probably a typo, of the amount of violence because victims don't always report abuse, fearing further abuse. Of 13 officers charged in 2021, 8 were accused of domestic violence. All right, so 8 out of 13. Other charges included rape and kidnapping. Now I'm going to bounce out to break up the sound of my voice. I'm just going to go to some recent, some not so recent headlines from South Carolina outlining what that abuse or what that violence could look like, right? So some new, some not so
South
new.
Carolina
This is from 2019. Okay.
Sheriff has been arrested on domestic violence charges. The state law enforcement division says that Colleton County Sheriff Andy Strickland was charged Saturday with second-degree.
Shout out to Taisha, who put me on to this story a while ago. Colleton County is rife with corruption. As you see, and I'm being serious, the Murdaugh Inc. family is just the tip of the iceberg, or rather, actually, kind of like people are looking at that case as being so like, oh wow, this is wild and crazy. It's actually, when you really dig into Colleton County and the history of bullshit down there, and the money laundering that may or may not be going on down there, I'm just saying. Carlton County is just rife with corruption, right?
Domestic violence for an alleged incident that happened Thursday. An affidavit states that Strickland assaulted the victim by punching her in the face with a closed fist more than once.
I think he kept his job. Did he keep his job? I can't remember. A lot of them silly sheriffs kind of got like second chances and mulligans. All right, this is Spartanburg County. And this is from this year. This is from July. This is Spartanburg County.
Now, a Spartanburg County deputy has been suspended without pay, charged with domestic violence. State agents say that deputy was arrested Monday in Spartanburg County. 7 News' Melanie Palmer has what we know so far.
Blake Barton has been with the Spartanburg County Sheriff's Office for the last 7 years. The sheriff here, Chuck Wright, tells us he has been a good employee, but now he's been charged with domestic violence.
You can't even say that.
A lot of eyes are on the Spartanburg.
I mean, I get it. Like when you react to the press's inquiries, I get that you kind of go into the whole like, you know, mindless kind of like, oh, we didn't know. Oh, this came out, which I doubt. Oh, this came out of the blue. We didn't know. He was good up until he wasn't. You're right. Probably was. I'm not saying in all instances, because there are some people hiding out here. They know how to hide. There's a lot of men, and I know personally, and I know I'm not gonna get too much into my personal business, but there might be some of y'all right now in the chat who've been in physically violent situations where maybe you're a attacker or you're a survivor of domestic violence. I'm a survivor of domestic violence, and the attacker just was not like, you would never ever think that person would be, you know, that type of dude, right? Or that type of person. So I do believe that there are people hiding out here, but for the most part, knowing the culture, I'm being a little bit broad, but that whole, we didn't know till we knew thing, I just don't believe it as readily as some other folks would. I'm skeptical. How about that?
Sheriff's Office. It's dark.
I don't know what happened. It just stopped.
Now, a Spartanburg County deputy.
But anyway, you got the gist of that one. I didn't know why that just stopped abruptly. And then this one right here, Marlboro County.
We have some breaking news.
And this is from this is from a few weeks ago. Okay. Marlboro County, South Carolina.
We have some breaking news that we just learned about on a story tied to a long-running series of Fox 46 investigations. South Carolina's Attorney General is announcing indictments against Marlboro County Sheriff Charles Lemon and a former deputy. They're facing charges based on some video showing Sheriff Lemon ordering then Deputy David Cook to taser a man repeatedly. The May 2020 incident then led to Lemon and Cook being charged with assault and battery and misconduct in office. Fox 46 Chief Investigator Jody Barr recently obtained that video, and we are told that it is disturbing. Jody's investigation started with allegations of corruption against a Marlboro County probate judge. That trail then led to Sheriff Lemon, who is now suspended. Jody Barr will detail that investigation and our exclusive video and where it's led on Fox 46 News at 4.
Okay, so after those 3 clips, I want to go back to that because there were so many stats. And I want to say, too, Avery Wilkes not just Avery Wilkes, but that's just the most notable name. Avery Wilkes with the Post and Courier, with the Uncovered series, has been paying particular attention to corruption within like the sheriff's department. You can tell they're being very strategic. It feels like the sheriff's departments are like the easiest ones to go for versus like individual police departments, maybe because the sheriff's department are like county level. I don't know why the reporting in this state about police misconduct, police buffoonery, police incompetence, police violence, police assault. I don't know why those the headlines tend to just be about the sheriff's office. And I get the power that they have, and again, the county level power and leadership. I get that, but at the same time, I'm like, I mean, if you really hit up some of these police departments, because like they come from the police departments, like that, the officer creepy stash that Graziano keeps caping for and covering for, he came from CPD, right? So I don't know what we're doing with like, oh, it's just the sheriff's. No, it's like law enforcement shit. Even shout out to Radley Balco again with the Washington Post. I mean, he talked about DNR. Our DNR, they carry guns. They shot people. They've killed people. Right? Is that technically law enforcement? I guess it's law and code enforcement, wildlife and shit. But it's a lot of stuff that you can drill down on and be like, yo, hold up. It ain't just the sheriff's department, which I just kind of thought about that as I was preparing for this morning. I'm like, why do they focus so heavily on sheriff and not like local individual police departments? But I feel like the state newspaper kind of got there a little bit, right? So we just finished this part up, and I wanted to show you the 3 examples. And then I wanted to get to, I think it's in the April. The April piece, y'all, is you gonna need to really be like trigger warning to yourself, because it really is sad to hear like the former spouse, the former like partner of a violent law enforcement officer, just to hear them be there was a part of like one of the stories in here that was really sad. Like she felt like she couldn't go anywhere. Her abuser was saying, if you divorce me, if you call the police on me, how you gonna get child support if I can't get no job? Using that to weaponizing a potential outcome against a survivor and her kids. It's really sad. So I kind of want to. Let me read the beginning of this and then float around to some of the more like sobering statistics and facts about what it looks like for police. And then we're going to go back out again and talk about police data and who needs to be leading the search for the data, or what the data doesn't have and why there are gaps. Even the current Department of Justice has expressed that there's gap. They have admitted that there's gaps in police data. And I don't really look at the DOJ as a big, like, as a source that I'm going to like lean on. I don't lean on our government. Sorry, it is what it is. Not sorry, but you get what I'm saying. Like, there's some things to glean from the data, but there's some things that, all right, this is DOJ, so it ain't going to really speak to the issues, not aggressively, right? The days of the Kerner Commission are over. I really believe that. All right, the sound, this is really hard, trigger warning, the sound of fists hitting flesh echoed in the bedroom. A woman's voice tried to stop the fists. The voice faded. Leah Ross said she remembered thinking, this is how I'm going to die. Her boyfriend pinned her to the floor, choking her, nearly making her pass out. He poured water into her nose and mouth. She felt like she was drowning, Leah said. Waterboarding. It was 2010, the first time he abused her, she said, but it wouldn't be the last. Leah survived the ordeal, but spent the next 8 years living through violent jolts from the man she later married, according to her own, it jumps around because of the ads, according to her own account in court documents. Through the entire 8 years, her husband, Donald Douglas Ross Jr., was a police officer with the Greenville Police Department, Airport Police, and Spartanburg County Sheriff's Office. We just heard from them, right? So look at those multiple layers of law enforcement: Airport Police, Greenville Police Department, Spartanburg Sheriff's Office, right? And I'm sure he had a record. I'm sure he had a record or something. I'm not sure, but I wouldn't be surprised if he had a record in those other places and was being bounced around. Allowed to bounce around, right? All right, this is why Sheriff Graziano needs to fire folks who have been found to do stuff that is not in line with her purported values, right? That's why you fire them, so that they don't just get a job working at the fucking Airport Police in Columbia or some shit, right? All right. The state contacted Ross's lawyer, who said they would not be commenting. So they reached out to the alleged, was he convicted? I don't know if I have to say alleged. I'm going to say alleged right now. Ross isn't alone. In the last decade, dozens of South Carolina officers were charged with domestic violence, an offense that Governor Henry McMaster called a scourge in our state after a sheriff was charged in 2019. I'm going to get to that article where Henry McMaster says this is a scourge in our state, right? It's disappointing. This is what McMaster went on to say. It's disappointing to see so many of our elected officials, particularly law enforcement officers, get in trouble. They're not getting in trouble, baby. A fender bender is getting in trouble, right? I would argue even the DUI is getting in trouble. This is violence perpetuated against women, and it's a pattern. It's not getting in trouble. The crime has garnered a name, officer-involved domestic violence, which is woefully lacking. When all the arrests of South Carolina officers accused of off-duty violence from 2010 to 2020 were totaled and averaged, a disturbing statistic emerged. Nearly 9 law enforcement employees were charged each year with violence. Each year, y'all, from 2010 to 2020, 9 a year. You do the math. And that number is likely too low, according to policing and domestic violence experts. The vast majority of those arrested were men. And the brutality isn't confined to charges of domestic violence. The number of arrests show alarming number of South Carolina officers. It's back in April from the state newspaper. Really sound reporting here, okay? The number of arrests show that an alarming number of South Carolina officers tasked with protecting the public are themselves the perpetuators of violence, especially when they are off duty, right? Can't stop being a warrior, right? You can't clock out from being a warrior. Warrior mentality is something that you have to internalize at such a deep level that they can't turn it off. And I'm not making a justification. I'm just saying, like, that warrior mentality must be really hard to turn off. Like, stop being violent. How do you stop being violent when you clock out for your shift, right? All right, South Carolina has consistently been one of the deadliest states for women attacked by men, ranking for years in the top 10 until slipping to number 11 in 2018. The latest year of a Violence Policy Center report says that, right? So nearly 40%, it goes on to say nearly 46% of South Carolina women reported being victims of sexual or coercion other than rape, according to the Centers for Disease Control. So this is when I talk about what gets measured gets managed, right? So you can't, so we know that we're not going to have law enforcement agencies drill down on the data to disclose this, right? Ain't no law enforcement agency in the country going to admit and going to cop to all these crimes, right? But I clicked on the hyperlink there. I'm gonna get that's McMaster. I clicked on the hyperlink to get that. Let me see. No. I'm gonna make sure I got the right one. Ooh. It's an article. Hold up. Let me go back here. Consistently the most deadliest. All right, here it is. Okay. So this was the link. This wasn't, it probably includes it includes a study, right? So this was published Wednesday, September 23rd, the year 2020. So over a year ago. South Carolina ranks 11 in rate of women murdered by men. First time in 23-year history that they dropped out of the top 10. And when it's just sad that that's actually something to celebrate. It's sad. But being in the top 20 is equally reprehensible, right? All right, so annual Violence Policy Center study ranks the states by rate of females killed by police. And so we're not going to get too much into that. We're just going to acknowledge that there's a resource here. There is the Violence Policy Center. That's where you will want to go to find this data as it's broken down by state. And then the study right here is when men, and I've used this study in earlier years, especially when I worked for the Center for Women in West Ashley. I use this document and this research. So when men murdered women, and it's an analysis of the 2018 homicide data. So you can check out, and that's where you'll see South Carolina is 11 and no longer in the top 10, right? All right. So I want to go on and continue to read from this from the April. Did I just close it out? Jesus. Yeah, when you click on the links, Meek. Hold on, let's get to it. Not that one. Okay, I'm doing a lot here. Okay, so let me continue to read this from this article here. Let me see, D, what did you say in the chat? They often know how to turn it on when they have to look innocent. Yeah, And they also rely upon all the credentials and their work. Here we go. We stopped here. And all that other stuff. Like, oh, he's wearing a badge, and like the badge can only do so much, right? In terms of just us understanding how this works. All right, sexual violence. So we just read these sobering statistics. Nearly 46% of South Carolina women reported being victims of sexual violence or coercion other than rape, according to the Center for Disease Control. And I think what that prompted me to do was, of course, look at that statistics, but also what that line prompted me to do was to also leave with y'all, like, so how are we talking about the violence? Again, how are we drilling it down? How are we understanding who's committing what and at what level? Is it rape? Is it sexual misconduct? Is it harassment? Is it shooting the damn the police dog? We really need to know what the violence looks like and who is it affecting more, right? All right, so very, very compelling bit of art. This is a very lengthy piece that is very important to read for sure. But very lengthy. And there was at the end, I'd be remiss if I didn't do this. This was important to scroll down to the end and just again. So they had, look at this ad. They know I need a new desk. And our devices be listening. So this right here says a statewide policy for officer-involved domestic violence could reduce the violence against women, according to police experts. So again, what we don't have here as a state, we don't have a statewide policy for officer-involved domestic violence. Again, you can tell me that you care about women. You can call it a scourge, McMaster. But what are you going to do to actually make that, change that? What are you going to do to change that, to make sure that people that we elect or hire to work in law enforcement, how do we work to make sure that they're going to be held accountable? What gets measured gets managed. So if you're not going to measure it, if you're not going to create policies either, right? The measurements will help lead to policy change, right? But South Carolina does not. I'm going to keep reading. I'm going to keep reading from this article, right? So a statewide, I'm going to say it again, a statewide policy for officer-involved domestic violence could reduce the violence against women, according to policing experts. New Jersey, North Dakota, have policies for officers involved domestic violence. What I want to do is, oh my God, y'all, I'm so uncomfortable. What I want to do is open this up in a new tab. So this is, I haven't looked at this yet. This is from my home state, my home state. Departmental policy of handling of domestic violence incidents involving law enforcement officers. So I'm just going to read this little, I guess what you would call an abstract. This policy, prepared by the Division of Criminal Justice, is intended to serve as a model for the law enforcement agency in formulating a written policy regarding the department's handling of domestic violence incidents, involving a member of the law enforcement agency. Each department's policy should be reviewed by the department's legal advisors to ensure that it meets all constitutional, statutory, right? So at least, like, I guess, again, I'm not aware of how this policy is changing the reality of, hey, there are people who suffer at the hands of police in terms of violence, domestic violence. I don't know. But the fact that there is a policy to at least address that, to address the concerns of officers victimizing the public and victimizing their partners, at least there's something there. So New Jersey and North Dakota got have policies in place, right? Police leaders, scholars, and survivor advocates developed a policy in Florida. Washington requires its police agencies to have such policies, as does Oregon's police accreditation group. And you're going to get a lot more. You're going to get some interesting policies out from the Pacific Northwest, especially when you're talking about Oregon, maybe Portland in that area, where it's a little bit more progressive, and you see less regressive policies being floated and tested, as they're often floated and tested in the South. All these regressive ass policies, they see whether or not, like these anti-trans bills that are floating through our state house, they test them here in regressive states to see whether or not they have viability in other areas. Whereas in places like Oregon and maybe even some other blue states, you'll see that they're actually testing progressive policies a little bit more frequently, right? And so we'd like to see that here. That's the reason why I'm reading this to you, is that, hey, we can have some sort of oversight here. What would it look like, right? oh, we can just look, and just like with any business, a good business person, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just have to search and reapply. So look at what North Dakota, look at what Oregon, look at what New Jersey's doing, and try to modify it to see if it meets the needs of a state like South Carolina. So South Carolina does not have a specific policy. The article goes on to say does not have a specific policy, provides guidance if an officer is an abuser, right? It's up to each. It's up to each of the more than 300 police agencies, 300 police agencies in the state to create their own policies. And that's intentional. I don't think, you will not see me defending the police. You will not see me ever writing another op-ed in defense of anybody or whatever, of the police. But this does not help that. Like, this should not fall on individual agencies like by them. Like, it should be specific, but it kind of shouldn't just be like, hey, you're on your own, figure this shit out. They don't have the wherewithal. Look at those stats. Look at that shitty ass graph or slide deck from CPD. They don't have the resources, nor do they have the will to create policies, right? That sounds absurd. LQJ, I see you in the chat. I got you. All right, so I want to skip down more because we kind of got the broad strokes of what is here, what isn't, right? Oh, one thing, and I said this kind of casually earlier, please make sure you keep an eye on these men's groups that are organizing with the help of certain legal. There's a niche that some lawyers have chosen to fill, which is, hey, you like to beat up women and you got your gun rights taken, or you got your access to firearms restricted heavily. I'm gonna help you get your access to firearms back because, you're a man and it's not right that you get your guns taken from you when you beat up your wife and your children and stuff like that. Like, we gonna make, like, there's a whole faction of you could just go on YouTube and Google either men's rights or expungement after felony domestic violence. Like, go do that, have that fun search. Expungement after domestic violence, charge. And let me just say this, as an abolitionist, as someone who does not gift the police with instant credibility in my belief. Like, I don't believe the police when they talk, right? I don't believe the police when they speak, right? I'm very skeptical. I also, think that we need a huge overhaul when it comes to policing in America, right? So I have to say that because I understand also that, of course, for all the people out there saying, no, my daddy got jammed up, my uncle got jammed up, my cousin got jammed up, and it wasn't right. He did something when he was 15 and it wasn't. Those cases, put those aside. Put together the shitty convictions off of things that weren't, like unfair decisions made by our really wonky judicial system. Like, put that to the side. We know that there are instances where there's overreach. We know there are instances where the prosecutors could be overzealous or where a judge could be overzealous or whatever. We know that exists. But put that to the side. I believe that, right? We're talking about people who are, like, to me, I don't want to oversimplify the issue either because it's very broad and it's very, very complicated. But to me, domestic violence is more so on the end of the spectrum of, like, we when we see it, we know it, like, kind of thing. Like, this is not as complicated to identify. And I hope I'm not being dismissive or sounding dismissive. I just feel like domestic violence, it and not in all instances, but it can leave very real proof. And I'm not just talking about just physical injuries. Like, we've seen explosive tendencies, anger issues, anger management issues. Like, these things are easy to track and to understand a little bit more. Even the ones that are a little bit more stealth in like, perpetuating a nice guy image and then at home he's hell, right? That's all I have to say with that. I don't know. I kind of went off on a little tangent in my own head. And I hope I didn't sound like I was justifying or simplifying something to whatever. But I said all that because there are all these groups that are out here organizing to get people back their guns. And I would assume that there are, out of like 10 cases, I'm sure there are 1 or 2 where it's justified that, hey, you did this thing when you were 17, it should be expunged. But for the vast majority, what I've seen, especially after the insurrection on January 6th, what I've kind of noticed is this male grievance. And there's a whole industry around male grievance designed to make white men specifically feel empowered and make them feel like someone's fighting. Your rights have been taken as a white man. Your gun has been taken as a white man. Your rights have been taken. Your freedom's been taken. Your job's been taken. There's no real accountability or self-assessment or internal type of reflection. There's more so an industry and an environment, especially here in the South, where men are seen as perpetual victims of a system. Of a changing world, of a rapidly changing world, where women have more rights, women have more access to resources, so they're more mobile and maybe able to leave. In some instances, a lot of men just can't get with that there are women's groups out here advocating for them after sexual assault, after domestic violence, right? There's a lot of hatred for women. I mean, you don't rank perpetually in the top 10. You don't rank consistently in the top 10 of domestic violence, like worst states for women to live in. You don't do that without having a culture of hate towards women. Does that make sense? Right? You don't get to that shitty ass, designation without having a really, really piss poor culture of when it comes to women. All right, in the chat, hey Kia, good morning. It's good to see you. I know, I know you weren't doing well, but I appreciate the update, and I'm sorry you had to chime in on such a gnarly topic. But it's good to see you, Kia, and I hope you're safe. I hope all y'all really did have. I started off with a whole spiel on New Year's, and I hope y'all safe and whatnot. So I'm gonna fast forward to the bottom of this, and we're gonna go back to data. So at the bottom of this really well done story, I'm gonna read the caption that the state newspaper included, and then I'm gonna go back to the resources that, if you're watching, you'll see the hyperlinks. All right, this story is part of an ongoing series by the state, Black and Blue. This is highlighting untold stories about police officers in South Carolina and their interactions with women. Let me read that one more time for emphasis, right? And again, this was published back in April and then updated, I think, since in October. April, May, June, July. In October. Making sure I didn't go backwards. All right. It says this story is part of an ongoing series by the state. And the series, y'all, is called Black and Blue, right? This is highlighting untold stories about police officers in South Carolina and their interactions with women. Our reporters, come on. Can we get more reporting like this? Can we do this? Can we also look at the violence perpetrated against teachers since the rise of Trump? Because we could just drill down a whole bunch of areas that I really care about, that all of us care about. But I want to know about teachers. I want to do an investigation on like a bunch of stuff, like sexual harassment in the workplace, at the city level. Like, come on, can we come through? But this is good. This is our reporters working on this project. Would love to hear from you. So y'all, Travis Bland was like the guy that has the byline here, but there are other people too. It says, so look what they did. Look what they did here. All right, it says, for stories about domestic abuse in South Carolina law enforcement, you can reach Travis Bland, right? And then it said, if you have a story to share about interaction between a South Carolina officer and a Black woman, you can reach Miss Eisner. There's it, Kiara Eisner. That's just, to me, that's interesting. Oh, you got dedicated reporters, not just dedicated to cover like the Nancy Mace beat, but these are the stories that really drive, that really hit home for a lot of us out here, either in justice work or, if you work in to advocate for women who are victims or people who are victims of domestic violence. This is really important reporting. So then I'm gonna go back up, right? And there was a quote at the end that was really sad. There was this really nasty story already in 2021. This is gonna be a little gnarly little turn before I get back to data. But y'all, this broke my heart. Already in 2021, SLED has charged 4 officers with violence against women. So this was back in 2021. Again, remember the year, the state newspaper put this, made this a feature story on the front page of, let me open it up. This is from April, but the recent story is what prompted me to look back into their reporting on domestic violence from April. So I want to get to the e-edition. We got this. Right. And so, yeah, so this is the front page. So I was already going to cover the Raphael James story about, CPD dropped this data that's very underwhelming and incomplete, right? But then as I opened up today's paper, I was like, you got to be kidding me. You got to be fucking shitting me, right? Oh, God. Why I feel like I'm doing something wrong. I'm not. Okay. I feel like I forgot something. I forgot to check something. But anyway, I got a little distracted. But I opened this up. I'm like, what the? So more police. So this is the story that prompted me to go deeper into, like, I kind of changed positions on like how I was going to cover this morning's live stream. And so more South Carolina police charged with violence against women in 2021. So the story I'm reading from is from April. Is the bigger story in April. And this statistic, this piece right here, and then I'm going to move on. Already in 2021, SLED has charged 4 officers with violence against women. An officer was accused of raping a mentally incapacitated woman, a warrant said. Another officer was said to have sexually assaulted a woman while in uniform and with his service weapon on him, according to a warrant. The other 2 officers were charged with domestic violence. All 4 were fired. You hear that, Graziano? Fired, right? All right, and then I'm going to go on here to, again, the resources. So they lift up SCCADVASA. Y'all know that organization, SCCADVASA.org. They're like the state's leading group on this, or at least the one that gets a lot of attention. And then Sister Care. I'm not familiar with sistercare.org, but they also included SLED has some sort of resource which it's for officers dealing with mental health and family issues. So SLED supposedly has some kind of resource, but given the way that law enforcement have been clicking through domestic violence training, as reported, as talked about here, as reported in our local paper, it's really, I wouldn't put too much value in the SLED resource, but there is a SLED resource, so we can't say that they don't have one. Another resource that I wanted to lift up, and I think what some of the reticence around me compiling all of the resources that I talk about or share during the live stream, I think some of it is, it's a daunting task to kind of come back and just kind of capture all of these links, but I'm really going to try to, at least for Patreon people, which I have yet to do, is maybe have the resources there to incentivize people to become a patron. You can become a patron for $1 a month. You don't have to like overcommit to something that you can't afford. But perhaps I think for the things that people ask me for the most, that's an indicator for me to try to, make sure that work and that labor is supported. And so I'll probably end up putting a lot of these links like this right here. This is Princeton University's Black Lives Matter Policing and Incarceration Statistics and Data. And so like with the data associated with redistricting and movement around there, I think that I need to compile a resource list of certain data and certain think tanks that are leading the way with this, right? So this is from the Princeton University Library. But I wanted to get back really quick. Now I don't know if it's going to be quick, but I wanted to get back to some of the conversations around policing and data. I don't want to get too much into mapping. I didn't want to get too much into like mapping and predictive police. Well, no, mapping, yes, but predictive policing, I didn't have the time for that, and that deserves a larger conversation. But I wanted to play this from Samuel Snagwe. Like with D. Ray McKesson, there's some pluses and minuses with Samuel's work, but I do feel that the work is very important, and I've used and leaned on Samuel Snagwe's data collection in a lot of instances. But I just wanted to preface it, just like ain't my first go-to, but in terms of just finding material and video to engage y'all, because I don't like just to be me talking and me lifting up your comments. I like for y'all to actually hear and learn something from someone else, again, to help people in Charleston understand that there are people working actively, toward a more progressive idea of what policing should look like. And it's not just something that I'm just pulling out my rear end here. So let's play this.
On the number.
Play a little bit of this. And y'all, you're gonna have to, please forgive me. I will have to step away for a second. I'll be right back. So.
Hello, my name is Samuel Sinyangwe, co-founder.
Please listen to this though. I'll be right back.
Today I'm gonna tell a story about police violence in America. My story begins on August 9th, 2014, when Mike Brown Jr. was shot and killed in the streets of Ferguson, Missouri. His death sparked a wave of protests that has reverberated around this country to this day. There are people still protesting in St. Louis today. And in those early days and weeks and months of the protest movement, there was a national conversation that emerged around police violence and its causes, its underlying conditions, how it impacted communities, particularly communities of color. And all too often, those conversations were not grounded by data. And the reason for that is because the federal government, even to this day, does not collect comprehensive data on the number of people killed by police in this country. They could tell you how much rainfall there was in rural Kentucky going back centuries, but they couldn't tell you with any degree of accuracy how many people police killed in this country. And so we built the most comprehensive database of people killed by police to answer the questions that had emerged and that were continuing to be asked all around this country. We looked at crowdsourced data, local media reports, obituaries, criminal records databases, social media profiles, public records requests, and analyzed and synthesized and aggregated all of that data into one database called Mapping Police Violence. And then we figured out how to visualize that data and tell a data-driven story about what was happening in this country and how we could address this issue. And it started with this map. This map shows 964 people who were killed by police this year in 2017. About 3 to 4 people every single day. And I show this map because in those early days, so many people were not convinced that this was a national crisis, that this.
I'm gonna pause it there because I wanted to actually pull up that map so that y'all know. So Mapping Police Violence is a resource tool that a lot of folks use. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, here we go. So this is the map that he showed there, and then also y'all know another resource. We're gonna get back to Sam in a second. Another resource is the Washington Post police shootings database, the Fatal Force. Y'all have heard me mention this a lot. So 900 people have been shot and killed by police in the past year. Of course, we know we just ended the year. This was updated on the latter part of December 28th, right? So this is from the Washington Post. It's really interactive, has tons of hyperlinks and links to other stories, not just Radley Balco, but a number of other people. And to talk about how I don't expect CPD to put out data that looks like Washington Post data, or even Samuel Sinagwe's mapping, the Mapping Police Violence, right? I don't expect it to, well, maybe it is, because this is not, it takes a lot of time and whatnot. Look, these are the statistics here, right? I expect them to look like this. I expected the CPD statistics to look a little bit more complete and have more explainers and hyperlinks to a key, so we understand how this data was aggregated and how certain conclusions were drawn. Like, show your work. For all those who have math anxiety, like I did growing up, show your work. Show me how you got to this number and that you didn't use a calculator, right? Right? Or if you did use a calculator, what did you put in? I need to know how you arrived at that correct answer or that incorrect answer.
In fact, was nationwide in scope.
Thank you, Kia.
They may have thought that there was something going on in St. Louis or there was something going on in Baltimore, but we used the data to show that, in fact, this was happening all over the country in many different communities, and that it was impacting particular communities to a larger degree. So we looked at the data by race, and we found that Black people were 3 times more likely to be killed by police than their white peers, that Latinos were about 1.5 times more likely, Native Americans 1.5 times more likely, than white people to be killed by police per population. We also found that Black and Latino people were more likely to be unarmed when killed by police.
Mm-hmm.
But we wanted to dive deeper into this data so we could better understand what was happening and start to come up with.
And this is from 2017.
And so we broke the data down by city and by state and began to analyze at a much more granular level what was happening. And we got this chart. We looked at the 100 largest cities in America.
So I've used this data. This is really like phenomenal. I'm telling you, it breaks it down. If you can see, I don't know if you can make out if you're watching. I don't know if you can make out the top is the key on the right, the graph on the right. It breaks it down by like New York Police Department, LAPD, Baltimore PD, Chicago PD, etc. Right? But what it does is it color codes it. So there's a color for Black, a color for Hispanic, a color for Asian, a color for Pacific Islander. I'm assuming it's cut off, white, and then unknown. And I think that level of specificity is important. Of course, they're covering these really large police departments, some of the largest in the country, if not the largest in the country. I'm looking at LAPD and NYPD. And so you're looking at these police departments, so they would demand almost that level of specificity, but you could argue that you would need some level of specificity when looking at CPD charts and graphs as well. Like, what are y'all what are you saying? You're just saying that, hey, we had a bunch of stops, but like not all of them ended in death. Like that's not what we're looking for. And especially, this is what I think what breaks my heart, y'all, about Charleston. I know some people saying to me, you continue to expect Charleston to show up like other cities, you're going to keep being disappointed. No, I'm going to keep having high hopes. I'm going to keep having higher expectations. I'm going to keep expecting better, expecting more, until somebody starts demanding more, demanding better, right? I'm going to keep saying that, no, we deserve better, because especially after Jason Cooper, especially after Jamal Sutherland, especially after you fill in the blanks of what happened, what has happened in the Tri-County area over the last 10 years alone, especially this city, this place, we should have way more detailed data, right? We shouldn't always have to also rely upon the ACLU either. There should be something very specific here in Charleston that aggregates this data, that puts it together and also makes it plain for us to understand and use and whatnot. And no shade to the ACLU, but sometimes they can be, their support is situational. It's not constant, and is largely driven by things that get traction. Like, y'all know that, y'all peep game. They had to raise money too, right? Not to say they don't do good work, but you get it, right? And I just think that we should see something akin to, now I'm gonna say this with a grain of salt, akin to Durham Beyond Policing or other organizations that I've seen in Texas and maybe even Baltimore to a degree. Yeah, Baltimore, where you have community-led initiatives. I think it's something similar to what the Low Country Action Committee is probably trying to do. I have no clue. The Low Country Action Committee and I are not in community. That doesn't mean it's beef. It just means that they ain't no, outside of like what happened this summer, there's a relationship for whatever reason, right? But what I get in terms of what Josh and Shaquille and Erica and others are trying to do over there, I think they're trying to take the tools from ACLU and some other places and probably perform a function similar to this type of data aggregation. Am I using that term right, y'all? Please, like, pull me, like, Mika, you saying it wrong. But like, you hear what I'm saying? Like, I think I got that. But like, I think they're trying to here, at least locally, be that thing that's not ACLU. And it drills down on the causes and the root causes of these issues and how it occurs. I think that's what they're doing. Again, not being in community with them, I am somewhat limited, and there is not that much interaction between folks who run that account and myself, right? So now that's probably got some baggage there. I'm 40 fucking one. All right, I'm 41. I gotta remember that too. I'm 41. Meaning that there's probably generational differences. I didn't want to leave this though. I wanted to Well, let's keep Sam talking real quick. Let's keep Sam talking. Because I guess I was gonna hop back over to the police, the fatal force statistics about the disproportionate killings. Like, black people make up only X amount of the population in the United States, but yet we're killed at a higher rate, right? And I wanted to kind of get into that. This is so sad right here. These are officer involved shootings. Right. Oh, this is what I liked about this was important. So y'all know that I've done this before. I've shown this before. Want to do it again. So let's break it down by state. Let's go down South Carolina. Right. And this is why, like, again, not expecting CPD to release anything that is akin to this, that resembles this, and not even expecting other grassroots or statewide, organizations that have this type of functionality behind the data or the studies that they release. But it would help if the key word of today, kids, is specificity. We need more than just broad strokes. We need to know what's going on, right? Right. All right. So you with Fatal Force from Washington Post, you can drill it down. You can drill it down by race. So I do South Carolina and I do race. I do black, right? And so, this is what I've been seeing a lot of. Let me take that out. What I've been seeing a lot, especially like Marjorie Taylor Greene. I know I'm not bringing her name up to I don't give a fuck about Twitter. Twitter didn't ban her for real. They just banned half of it. I don't give a fuck about that late shit with Twitter. But like, I've seen Marjorie Taylor Greene and other people of her ilk who are not busy crafting legislation or anything that actually bring this country further. What they spend a lot of time on and say, oh, well, look, 61 61 white people were killed in South Carolina to just 29. That's half. But if you do it per capita, or like, we're not the same in number. Like, we're a numerical minority here in the state. Black people are, right? And you can keep going down, Hispanic, Asian, all that. So, so if you really looked at this data, it exceeds the rate by which they're killing white folks, if that makes any sense. Or you know what I'm saying? Like, do it per capita. I'm saying it all kinds of wrong, but you get what I'm saying. Population, like, do it by population, race, population, right? Yeah. That's not the argument you think it is, right? They think it is. Like, they're killing more white people. And this is one thing I want to really caution against, because this happened during 2020, and I'm gonna keep saying it until I'm gonna keep saying it until Tyler tried this bullshit with Carolyn Murray, and she didn't push back on that. They didn't cut that out. Tyler tried to do this shit. The Boogaloo Boys tried to do this shit in Columbia. I saw it on tape when it happened. Don't let that the ultra right. This is how Shaquem was able to. Let me just point it out. I'll get to that. So anyway, drill down. Washington Post. Well, I'll get to that. I definitely will have to. That's gonna be my dismount. Don't let these issues. Don't let the right wing violent insurrectionists conflate the issues that we're fighting for. Don't let them conflate these issues, because they're not the same. What they're looking for, they want lawlessness. They want to police their own communities, right? That's why you got the business investment district actually literally advocating for a sub-municipal and their own like paramilitary bullshit. Like, that's what they want. What the Boogaloo Boys and the Proud Boys are arguing for is, yes, less police. Right, that's why they were so comfortable trying to kill cops on January 6th during their riot and insurrection. They're trying to get around police and trying to, like, my rights, my liberties, sovereign shit, 1776. That ain't the same as what we're fighting for. We're fighting for police accountability and to reform policing in America. So we're talking about justice. They're talking about just them. Does that make sense? We talking about justice. They talking about just them. Free whitey, right? All right, so I just want to say that, and probably, yeah. But so you could drill down the stats on Fatal Force in Washington Post, right? So you see 29 people killed, and of course from 2021 we don't, So but let's look at, okay. So this is, I don't do this because this really fucks my head up. So back in June of this year, Earl Fitzgerald Hunter, 40-year-old black man, allegedly armed with a gun. And I say allegedly because you don't know. Walter Scott should have taught y'all that. Allegedly armed with a gun, was shot on June 23rd, 2021 in a house in Greenville. And so what I like about Fatal Force, or what I can appreciate, is that they include a news source at the bottom, the local news source, and they add details like no body cam recorded, and undetermined if the person was fleeing, and no known or unknown mental illness. Let's click on that story. And don't, again, taking police at face value, I'm not even saying this because I'm a abolitionist. It's not a good idea. They lie all the time. Police lie all the time. And it's not even funny. It's really not. So let me see if they play the story. Oh, it's muted. Thank you. Shout out to all the news sites that mute the ads so I don't have to listen through Mark Pepper talk about how he's awesome. Shout out to y'all. All right, so we're going to unmute.
A free inspection today.
Thank you, Tatiana. A developing story.
This is sad.
A man is dead after the Greenville County Sheriff says he was shot by deputies. 7 News' Jennifer Martin is live in Greenville at the Sheriff's office with what we know so far. Good morning, Jennifer.
Hi, good morning, Fred. So the coroner confirmed for us that the man who died in the shooting was 40-year-old Earl Hunter. And the sheriff also confirmed that no deputies were hurt in this officer-involved shooting that happened yesterday, and that the deputies who were involved have been placed on administrative leave, which is standard.
So the Chiron says Greenville County Sheriff's Office says they were serving a warrant. There's still so many details that we need to learn from these stops. Like, how do you go from 0 to 100? How do you go from serving a warrant to somebody dying, right? And we know for a fact that cops can de-escalate. I'm gonna go back to the insurrection in this instance. We know that the cops can de-escalate because they showed us right there. They know when they want to and when they don't want to shoot. Seriously. I'm not saying I'm advocating for massive bloodshed. I wasn't advocating for massive bloodshed at January 6th, but there were instances where I thought that, you pull a gun on a man pulling a wallet out. You pull a gun on a man reaching in the gun box. And granted, I know those officers weren't necessarily the officers involved in some of the more higher profile extrajudicial killings of black people, but you get my point. It seemed like law enforcement has this hair thin trigger when it comes to pulling out a gun and sometimes squeezing that trigger aimed at marginalized people of marginalized identities. But yet we saw it at the insurrection, and it was largely underscored by all these voices on Twitter and social media saying, where are the police, how come you can't subdue this, where's the National Guard? We've seen all that heavy police presence at other types of events. We've seen police shoot, we've seen police apprehend, we've seen police here in Charleston, seen girls in yoga pants with their midriff out be hauled away, unarmed, young girls be hauled away by police, right? So when you look at the insurrection and you like, damn, okay, that person got trampled to death and that young lady got shot. I think the young lady that got shot was the only one that was killed by law enforcement, right? I know there were fatalities due to like the being trampled and people had heart attacks in there. I'm talking about people who participated in insurrection, right? But in terms of dying at the hand of police, it was only one death, right? It was the one chick, right? I know it feel like a blur, but like, I'm not advocating to say, hey, there should have been more bloodshed. No, I'm not saying that at all. No, I don't want any police violence enacted on anyone. Even if you are participating in insurrection, you would hope that there were non-lethal ways to subdue that crowd, right? But it makes you think about, so they're able to not shoot and restrain themselves in that situation. And not all those situations were a mob of zombie, MAGA. It's some one-on-one situations where, okay, you pulled the trigger on this young boy over here in Cleveland, or you pulled the trigger on this woman, this black woman in her home in Washington. So where's the thought? Where's that similar thought process? Again, I'm happy that there weren't more people shot by police. I'm serious, but then it makes you think, well, why aren't you applying the same type of rationale here? Why aren't you doing that back home in Missouri, in Charleston, in Spartanburg, in Greenville? Like, why can you de-escalate when it's a certain type of person or a certain type of threat? And so I said all that because they say, oh, we're serving a warrant. I just shoot like how you get from warrant to fatality, and to choose the the conclusion I arrive at, albeit convenient, is because they know when they want to de-escalate and when they're not going to de-escalate. Like, they pick and choose their spots. And I believe that that's true. I believe it to be true.
For an officer-involved shooting. So this all happened, according to investigators,
you always got a reason, a justification for taking somebody's life.
On Montague Road, and this was around 5 o'clock near Berea Middle School. We're told that deputies were trying to serve Hunter with a warrant. The sheriff says that Hunter was wanted for some very serious charges and was found hiding inside a duplex in Greenville and was armed. He told us there was a fight between deputies and Hunter, and that's when the suspect was shot. The sheriff says that state investigators have now taken over the case.
Of course.
And he also added that his office has been searching for suspects with outstanding warrants more and more frequently.
See,
unfortunately, more people were carrying guns.
So this is what I've seen too. This is why I really wanted to talk about this, address this. I know, right? First live stream of the new year, and I'm up here just coming off the ropes. But this is what I'm seeing too, and I'm seeing this in Charleston specifically. So even with the Chick-fil-A Chief Reynolds and his gang releasing that data, there's also something that comes out with the messaging about, how crime is so running rampant and King Street needs a bid because of the crime, and we need extra resources. And I would argue, well, if the police can't handle their job and they need to deputize shop owners, then we got a bigger problem. Then we got a bigger problem than we thought, which is essentially what that bid will do. Is going to deputize a bunch of shop owners to kill at will. We saw CBB lift up a shop owner for firing a gun at unarmed protesters. So yeah, that's not a stretch. We saw a Halls employee come out and fire his weapon multiple times and face nothing but a slap on the back by CVB in their newsletter to their membership base. So it's not really outside the realm of possibility to think that, the police is going to deputize a certain faction of business owners or allow or empower their security forces to carry out extrajudicial justice, so to speak. If that's like a oxymoron, but you get what I'm saying. Right? It's not a stretch. But what I'm saying, every time they come out with the bullshit ass data, they come back out with, well, we know we working extra hard now. There's so much crime. Woo! I tell you, so much crime. We're serving warrants like every 5 minutes. Again, if you can't do your job without killing somebody, maybe you need to look for another line of fucking work. How about that? We don't care about the alleged crime wave. We don't care about that. It probably can be attributed to the growing inequities in the state or the area, but that's another live stream. I don't care about the fucking crime wave. You're a fucking crime stopper. You getting paid big bucks. And if not you directly, your department is. So figure it the fuck out. Right?
Today,
here they come.
We encounter, and that's what led to what
increase the budget year after year.
Obviously, had the guy walked out, held his hands up.
D, thank you for bringing it up, D. And Lil Mama, your point too, like, just like giving guns to teachers, right? You know it's gonna get, you know who's gonna get shot, right? Shit, I wish you would give these teachers, especially if in schools like how I went to in high school, please. I wish, if you gave Mr. Barnwell a gun, oh my God, I don't even want to think about that. Lil Mama, you dropped in the chat, we increase the budget every year. The crime increases, right? Hello, right? And then we're in a pandemic still. We're in a global pandemic. I want to make sure I said that right. I didn't say pandemic. I don't believe in that. We're in a global pandemic. We're also in an economic crisis. Yeah, crime is gonna go the fuck up, right? And like we talked about on the previous live stream, what kind of crime? Because I think in some instances homicides are going down or something. Is it gun related deaths, gun related violence? Is that the uptick, or is it jewelry heists? Is it carjacking? Like you gotta tell us what it is, and not just like, oh, okay, crime going up. What crime? What causes it? What's the factors? Oh, okay, pandemic. Okay. We one of the states that canceled unemployment early. Okay. We also one of the states that has limited SNAP benefits year over year during the Trump administration. Shout out to Seema Verma and McMaster. Like tell me where you seeing the crime at, not just, hey, we're serving more warrants than ever. I'm actually gonna not listen to the rest of this cop. But I just wanted to point out that whole practice of like, yeah, we've been serving more warrants, so there's gonna be an uptick in violence. No, it's not. No, it's not. You don't have to kill somebody serving a warrant. You don't. And for those who are struggling, like I will say this. Those who are struggling with like headlines like this, like, Mika, why don't you talk about this? Why don't you talk about this? I will, and I have. But it's going to be a conversation that is just not. It's not going to center the police. So this is also a recent story, as you can see right there. It's marked 19 hours ago. Stephen Garrison, so about a day ago, Stephen Garrison, who I really do enjoy his reporting. Not always not from a position of fandom, but I think he does really sound work, right? But that being said, I'm not going to center the police, even in a story this heart-wrenchingly, devastatingly, so it just broke me down. So right here, teens and killing of College of Charleston official's husband wait for a waiver for hearing. So these teens, we'll get the ages. I see the word spree, but these are juvenile detainees, right? These are juvenile detainees. And that's what really breaks my heart, is that these kids, for whatever reason, they're 15-year-olds? Are they 15-year-olds? They're juveniles, and so they're figuring out how and where to try these kids. But of course, y'all's favorite solicitor that black activists love lifting up, of course, Solicitor Scarlett Wilson asked to try 3 teens as adults, right? Right now, I want to say this. This man did not deserve to die. This man's death was avoidable, was senseless, and there is no but. I am someone who operates in this. I am someone who occupies a certain space in Charleston where the where and the how matters, the why matters, and not just lock them up, throw away the key. I'm devastated by the fact that 3 underage people arrived at whatever conclusion in their lives that they had to take a life, take someone else's belongings in order to get by, get through. I can't relate to that. I have no understanding of that type of rage, anger, confusion. I don't know what even informs that. I'm just throwing out words that might, I have an imagination. I've dealt with at-risk youth ever since I was in college. I've mentored, I've done all that, big brothers, big sisters, all that, right? So I get it, and I've done that in Philly and Jersey City. So I'm getting it, right? But at the same, and I've been in schools here in Charleston County, right? I could only imagine what was poured into these poor young people, and I do believe that they're also victims here too. They're victims, and different kinds of victims, but they're victims too. There was something poured into these 3 teens, some kind of toxic mix of media, of perhaps some conditions that they came from. I don't want to say too much, but it's very sad. And to see the prosecutor try to convict these kids to the fullest extent of the law as adults, I don't think that's going to solve the problem. I don't think that's going to prevent the next senseless murder at the hands of some very confused, and I'll use it, fucked up teens, right? Fucked up for whatever reason. I don't think that that's going to prevent it, but we're seeing this "we got to be tough on crime" argument come and be even louder and louder, especially as the bid becomes a more attractive option. The deputizing of citizens really concerns me about the bid, because we've already seen that actually what it could look like, and we know what it's going to look like, right? We live in Charleston. But just seeing this drumbeat get louder and louder and louder about like, hey, we're going to prosecute these kids to the fullest extent of the law just to send a message, right? To see them stronger and harder on this type of crime and not stronger and harder on other types of crime that's pervasive in Charleston is really, it really fucks with me. So yeah, these were juveniles, and Scarlett Wilson says, you know, there's a backlog because of COVID. That's their favorite thing. Yeah. So to people saying, well, Tamika, what do you have to say about crime like this? Is like, this is a shame. And this is not just something that's specific to Charleston. We're seeing teens, embrace violence in a number of ways, for different reasons. And I'm more interested in listening to people kind of break down why this happened and how we can avoid this from ever happening again, how we can love on our kids, how we can protect our children, how we can, you know, get them to know that wherever they are in the immediate is not where they have to be long term. I'm more interested in that conversation. And I think that once we get to the root of why this type of violence occurs, I think that'll serve us better than just throwing a book at these kids and locking them away and then revisiting their story 30 and 40 years later when their whole lives have been, you know, when there was no chances at redemption, no chances at true reconciliation or justice. You know, I just, you know, that's how I feel about these stories when they're pretty. I read these stories, I study the details, but I'm always left walking away saying, this can't be the end for them. Like, I just can't relate to kids embracing violence like this. I can't. I don't know how they got to that part. That just, I don't know. It ain't the rap music. It ain't one thing. It's a bunch of things, right? Yeah. Nicole, you said same. They feel like there isn't any hope, right? Like that's how I feel. Like they must really, as I'm talking, and I want y'all to understand this. I got a twin brother in Chicago. And up until very recently, where since he moved out of Chicago proper, being held, seeing his peers showcase, my brother's peers who are educators, show bullet holes in their minivans as they were taking their children to school, or to listen to my sister-in-law talk about how many kids she's had to bury since becoming a teacher in Illinois, in Chicago public school systems and other school systems. Like, leaving Philadelphia. Now I lived in the burbs when I left. I left Philadelphia. I lived in Montgomery County, but now, so leaving my friends who are now dealing with an insurmountable amount of violence in like Northern Liberties and North Philly and all South Philly, West Philly. Like I want y'all to understand that I know this very well. Like I care. And I study these issues and I listen to the stories of people I care about. Literally, like last week, yo, did you see this, police? This happened. Did you hear this story? This happened in my backyard last night. I had to get the kids down and we had to hunker down. I get it. Right? But how do we solve that? How do we get these kids to stop thinking that being embarrassed publicly is not grounds for you to kill someone? Or how do we get to the point where, a guy opened his door and it hit you when you were on your dirt bike and you know, how do you get to not having them resort to violence? How do you get to that? How do you help them with emotional maturity and some sort of psychological help? And how do you do that when they're bombarded with images of violence as a means of justice, right? DJ Euphoric Bear, you said lots of generational childhood trauma. Thank you for addressing that. And you said that it's never been addressed. You ain't lying. It's so complicated, right? But Little Mama, I stopped reading because I was so emphatically agreeing with you. Like you said in the chat, they feel like there's no hope for their future. So why does anything they do matter, right? Yeah. Access to weapons, exactly. Why is it easier to get a gun, D? Why is it easier to get a gun than it is to get like a good internet connection? Seriously. Like, it's easier, in some instances, it's probably easier to get a gun or get their hands on something that's going to fuck up their brain chemistry. You know, these minds are growing, right? They're not fully developed until a certain age. So, you know, you got access to you know, all types of things, mind altering drugs or whatever it is, right? that also impede your judgment. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot there. Yeah. And our policies, look at you. Our policies reflect our values. Our values are fucked. And that, you know, I use one other common retail. I said what gets measured gets managed, right? And the fact that CPD is not measuring specific things or not keeping a log on certain data points and just presenting us the data they want us to see. So I said, you know, what gets measured gets managed. But to that point too, the other one that y'all, you know, from sales and retail, the other saying that I often say is what's permitted is promoted, right? So if you're permitting certain things, it's, you know what I mean? Like, so like we permit, so much of our policies are so violent, and even like our views of justice are all about retribution and take back and get back. I would never tell the victim of some sort of heinous crime or mass shooting or homicide, I would never tell a victim what to feel. I would never publicly say anything that will refute what they say. Even like it was really hard around the Mother Emanuel time to kind of push back against the narrative of quick and swift forgiveness, because it was hard to do that because these people are literally grieving in real time and have these cameras on them. But the other part was too, like let them live, even though you're not agreeing with what they're saying. Let them get through and let them navigate the grief, right? But how many times have y'all kind of watched cases unfold, the ones that get a lot of media attention, and you hear that the family is really, really traumatized by, and rightfully so, traumatized by whatever took place, of the lives that have been taken, and they want revenge? Is it like, and I think it's a human response. I think it's very, I get it. I get it as someone who was done dirty last year. Oh boy. When I say it's on site, right? That's me. It's on site, even though I don't even know if it is on site. And I'm not trying to make light of this, but like I get like it's a human condition to want that get back, to get that take back. But we ultimately, like, we know deep down that any type of like lock them up or throw away the key is not going to help us with our grief. It's not going to help us heal as a country. It's not going to help us heal as a community. It's not going to help make sure that thing never happens again. So while you create space for the natural response that is human, you also, as someone who works in justice, have to create just as much space for presenting the public with other outcomes. So when we're talking about kids and an uptick in violence on King Street that might involve kids, and they tried to spin this into remember this whole crime wave of kids, just a bunch of kids coming down King Street, lame ass King Street. Nobody even come down King Street no more. You're getting rid of all the food trucks and all the street meat. Right. But remember how they spun that narrative. All these kids are coming down and descending upon your favorite businesses and smashing windows, and like they spun this into something. But wouldn't it be great to have a voice just as loud as the media, the mainstream media here, or just as loud as Chick-fil-A Chief Reynolds, a voice just as loud saying, hey, you know what? There are other outcomes. There are other ways to get to arrive at justice. There's other ways to hold these 3 kids accountable for what can be described as almost unforgivable, even though I don't believe that, right? But you could. I can understand how someone would describe this as unforgettable. You took the life of an innocent College of Charleston provost. You deserve to rot, right? No, I don't believe that. I believe that there are other outcomes that you could organize for, that you can promote, that don't end in like, okay, so this life ended and all 3 of these lives have to end too. I don't think that's justice. That's some Old Testament eye for eye thing that I don't think is in line with, it doesn't solve anything, and it's definitely not in line with my values, as just someone right here just talking. Right. The DJ Euphoric Bear, you said easier to get anything but emotional support. Access to mental health support is economically out of reach. You ain't lying. As someone who lost their benefits after being terminated very, very abruptly, I'm with you on that. I miss my HOTEP therapist, gratefully, dearly. I miss her. I want to kind of go there. Kia, you agree with DJ Euphoric Bear's earlier point about the trauma that's not addressed. Okay, and you said definitely ain't most likely found kinship with one another. Absolutely, you can hear that. What's that word I'm looking for? Omerta. You can when you hear something, when you listen to kids or you ear hustle to certain people, you ear hustle within certain groups, you hear that type of loyalty to something that is to me, to Kia, to D, to little mama. We would never pledge our loyalty to certain things, but then you hear, like you said, that kinship. They seek out family and create family or create a family dynamic elsewhere in these unconventional spaces. And sometimes those spaces are very violent. B-Man, you dropped something in the chat earlier. It says, and living in the most violent culture that's ever existed. Yeah, from a geopolitical, look at you. Who's watching? Who's watching Democracy Now? Who's listening to the War and Peace Report? Okay. No, definitely though. We live in America is very violent. Like, it was founded on violence. It was founded on genocide and traffic Africans who were exploited for labor, sex, and a bunch of other stuff, right? So like this country is founded on violence, and that's why they're trying to help you erase it with CRT and all the other stuff, the anti-CRT and whatever. But no, we're not gonna forget it. I'm not gonna forget that my dad was denied the dignity of being able to piss on King Street in his lifetime. I'm not gonna forget that. I'm gonna remember that, and I'm going to record him as he tells me what it was like to be a black man in Charleston. And we're gonna teach that. If my like to borrow from the tweet that I shared a few weeks ago, if my dad can survive Jim Crow in South Carolina, can survive constables coming up on Wamala and shooting up black people with impunity, if my dad can be denied the dignity of being able to use the restroom of prominent King Street businesses and whatnot, then y'all can learn about what it was like to live like that. White folks can learn about that. They definitely can. If my dad at 81 years old can still kind of like get triggered into a old memory of being on King Street and being chased out of stores, then y'all can learn about it. Right? You feel me? All right. Right? Yeah. Thank you, D, for your contributions in here too. And thank y'all, like, especially the moms in this. Y'all get it. I think, and not to say that, you have to be a parent to understand this, but you get it. If you're rearing little adults and raising them into, raising little humans into adults, you get this. You get the thought process, right? Shit, if you were a little adult like me, right? Like you understand like how, like I was talking about last week, how I used to hitchhike when I cut school. I used to hitchhike. The dumbest shit I ever did in my life is hitchhiking. Like, I really could have been a Dateline special, or not really because I was black, but I could have been like a Dateline special. Seriously, like the lack of judgment that my brain had was crazy. And I could only, and that's just me being a knucklehead, right? Imagine if like violence was something that I didn't have like violent tools at my disposal. I wasn't angry, to the point of wanting to hurt somebody or wanting to take something for somebody that I felt like I was being denied. But like, just imagine like the thought processes, right? Joy, you said in the chat just now, being on the constituent board, we see this side, and far too often we expect our kids, particularly black students, to react to their emotions better than adults, right? They are offered punishment more than they offer understanding. And again, not to like be too casual with this conversation, but I feel like sometimes drawing certain comparisons is somewhat healthy. But it's almost like the college football NCAA, like the fake amateurism argument. Like when you see a coach lose it on a player, like hit a player in the helmet or grab his face mask, or think about Bobby Knight throwing chairs, choking that was the other guy that choked the team member. I think Bobby Knight choked somebody too. But we've seen all these instances of coaches losing it on like amateur athletes, right? And then you're like, wait a minute. So he's supposed to be more disciplined than you. He's supposed to be more in line than you. You can't even demonstrate. You're so frustrated that you can't win the whatever, the Cotton Bowl or the Orange Bowl, whatever it is. You so mad. You on the sidelines throwing shit, yelling at players, in their faces, pointing, da-da-da-da-da. But yet the kids are supposed to, like, the younger people are supposed to have more discipline than you. And that's often like, that's something that plays out in so many other areas, to Joy's point, in so many other areas of life, not just in the classroom. We expect so much of our children. And yet, and I get it really blows me away how many people openly participated in insurrection and then went right back to their real estate offices or businesses, went back to city council chambers. I'm thinking about, Tyler Bear Spray Bessinger being allowed to show his face and nobody checking him. Nobody even giving him an extra search or nothing. Like just being able to walk with impunity throughout Charleston with that heinous flag on his gerbil mobile, right? Right. So like, it's just really weird to me, how many of these adults come back and are allowed to just kind of be adults in society without any type of like shame or anything, but yet our kids are supposed to be better than that. Yeah. I'm gonna leave it there. I said I was gonna stick a pin into some of this. So when we talk about police, this is where I definitely got to dismount. When we talk about policing, when we talk about fight for justice, what I've seen with some of the less experienced organizers on the ground is, well, any enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? And I'm like, no, Charleston, PBS News Hour, riot, no. Race. Let me see. Hold on. I'm trying to find it. It's so funny how I was talking about policing and Googling it and it popped up like on Charleston. Oh man, I hate putting his name in here. How do you spell his name? Here it is right here. So yeah, so what we need to do is avoid instances like this. So I was very disappointed in PBS News Hour. I remember being apoplectic when this, like, I'm watching, y'all know me. I've been loving News Hour forever, since I was a little girl. Shout out Channel 13, New Jersey. And so what we can't do when we're talking about police violence, when we're talking about the root causes, we can't let white supremacy invade our justice spaces. And one place we've seen that again, we've seen this recently with the 2020 uprisings that were, they were organized to bring light to the injustice within our criminal justice system and the way we go about policing, right? So we saw folks take to the streets, but within a lot of that protest, you saw Boogaloo Boys, white supremacists. You saw a lot of people. You saw a lot of not a lot. You saw a number. Definitely saw Boogaloo Boys. Definitely saw MAGA crowd. You saw would-be insurrectionists. It's so funny too how KKK Corey and Tyler Bear Spray Bessinger, they ain't had none of that smoke on. And I'm not saying I wanted to see them get lumped up. They ain't had none of that smoke when they were outnumbered like heavy. They ain't had none of that. Where was all that smoke? Where was all that lip, dip? When we was outside, when folks was outside, I ain't see them. I ain't hear them. But anyway, so they're fighting to be. They are anti-authority. They are anti-authority. They are anti. When people say anti-science, they're anti-authority. They don't want anyone telling them anything. That's Aaron Rodgers, anti-authority. Take the COVID stuff out of Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers hates being told what to do. And we live in this world where white people are really, there's a white grievance, there's a white male grievance, but there is this real grievance with, like, you can't tell me what to do. I've got all these rights, and the 14th article of such and such ancient history paper from the Declaration of bullshit. And like, they love citing all these statutes and shit like they lawyers, right? And they sound wild. And I'm bringing all this up and talking about policing because, like, you have to understand what they're fighting for versus what we're fighting for. And so we can never afford to have a moment like this. And what I saw, this is kind of the beginning of, now this was supposed to be, it's called a secessionist and a black nationalist pledge peace. Fuck y'all both. Fuck y'all both, right? Fuck Tyler, fuck Shaquem Marquette, right? So that's some bullshit. But so you have to understand the history of black nationalists who believed in the physical separation of the races, just like Hitler, just like white nationalists. Let me just be more specific. Just like white nationalists make it more broad. And so you have a faction of black nationalists who believe in, who are very bigoted, right? Who are big. I ain't gonna get into no names because I don't want to lose my black card. But there is a certain faction of black nationalists who are very bigoted, anti-Semitic, all that. And so they're saying, oh, wait, enemy of my enemy is a friend of me. No, it's not. No, right? It's not. And the same thing happens with policing. So you saw, and I'm gonna get to it, but look at this bullshit. Because Tyler's been doing this shit for years, and I don't know why nobody's like peeping game.
In response to the recent events in Charlottesville, something interesting happened
you know what
in
he looked like,
South Carolina yesterday. That could be a roadmap forward. A secessionist and a black nationalist.
I'm gonna say this because I'm in mixed company. I'm speaking directly to the black people listening and watching. Shaquem looks like a coon. That's what he looked like. If you know what a coon is, that's a coon right there.
Came to
allegedly
together to make sure the racial tensions in their town do not lead to what happened in Charlottesville. They agreed to what they're calling the Charleston Accord.
And the thing is about Shaquem, I ain't trying to like saying y'all country mouse. I'm not doing that. I used to do that a lot when I got down here. I had to check my shit. But I will say Shaquem was just cosplaying. And those who knew, like I checked him on this and I got a barrage. I wrote an article on City Paper about when I saw this. I said, you got to be kidding me, right? So I remember where I was. I had my little part-time job at Trident United Way. Very, very racist time there. Very racist. Oh my God. The way I was talked down to like a peon, it was so race related. It was so, Trident United Way was anyway, it was a little part-time job. I just needed something between Uber just to keep the gas filled, whatever. So I'm over there and I remember I was so pissed. I'm like, fuck work. I'm gonna fucking type this piece for the City Paper. And I subsequently wrote a piece that was edited and then placed in the City Paper about this fugazi ass moment. But this really made me mad. And this was cosplay. You could put on all the ankhs and all the leather medallions and dashikis that have no Dutch wax. You could do all that shit you want to put on. You have all the black liberation flags out there. You can wear all the Fred Hampton shirts you want, but if you're not grounding your work in actual like scholarship, and I'm not talking about having credentials, I'm talking about just opening a fucking book. If you're not grounding your work in scholarship and community, then you're just out here just trying to create a public profile, which is what Shaquem has been very successful at doing. I think once he stood with a white nationalist, he should have gotten his car revoked, but we saw something different take place. We saw a lot of people gravitate to him since. Again, why does this matter? Because when it comes to fighting against police violence, a lot of people like to conflate the issue, like to kind of like, oh, okay, well, get down with the Boogaloo Boys. No, we're not going to get down with white nationalists who don't believe in that Jewish people are people. We're not going to get down with white nationalists who don't believe I'm a person. We're not going to get down with people who look down on other people of other faiths, of other races. We're not going to do that. We're not even going to give them credibility. We're not going to keep platforming them. And that's what you kept seeing with Tyler. And the fact that this got national attention, it really still to this day bogs my mind. It boggles my mind, rather. Yeah.
Which says, though they may continue to be on opposite sides of an issue, they would have an open dialogue, promote legal avenues for change, work to prevent violence, and collaborate for the public good when they could. As part of our Race Matters Solutions, tonight we have with us James Bessinger of the South Carolina Secessionist Party and Jonathan Throw.
Literally of the Secessionist Party. So, right? And then you had Carolyn Murray. I'm not even gonna pull it up. But then you had Carolyn Murray also platform Tyler Bear Spray Bessinger after he participated in insurrection, after I told her that, but had her, I think she had already interviewed him though. Had him also be platform again after being sued by by Roy Willie. I was gonna say the Willies, by Roy Willie, but still platform. And there's this really weird thing that happened where Tyler, I guess it is worth showing. I don't know. Carolyn Murray. It was a year later. Y'all remember that piece? Let me see. Carolyn Murray. Let me put my name in there. Shout out Carolyn. Carolyn. I should say Carolyn. Anyway, I can't find it. I don't really feel like searching for it that deep. But remember, Carolyn spoke with him about a year later after the uprisings on King Street. And Tyler sat there and said that, hey, we're in favor of policing too. We're in favor of better policing too. Let me just look for it up here. I'm going to be like, it's going to gnaw at me if I don't. That's not how let me put my whole name on there. Maybe that'll come up. Yeah. Anyway. All right. Anyway, y'all know what I'm talking about. I'll leave it there. No. Yeah. Oh, here it is. 1 year later. Lo and behold. So yeah, I just think that we have to be careful when we're not teaming up with people who are not trying to fight for justice. I also think too, with some of the groups that I've seen mobilized in the Low Country, I'm getting out of the whole umpire thing where I've like called balls and strikes, like, oh, I don't think you should have did that. Oh, you should have did this. I'm trying to get out of that, but at the same time, I guess I will say that after seeing certain things, also who you partner with matters. And I'm not saying people can't evolve, but some of the people that I've seen at the table at some of these, like, hey, let's talk about police. Let's talk about building better relationships between the police and the community, which I am not in favor of. I could do it, whatever. I've seen some people at the table who are literally delivering their communities to ICE and to law enforcement. So we got to be more intentional, more mindful about the relationships we forge in fighting for police accountability. It can't just be anybody who somewhat agrees with us. We really have to find deep, meaningful trust. We have to establish trust. We have to establish a relationship that's meaningful. We have to agree upon a certain level of community, a certain type of community standards. We can't just go along and get along. Sometimes we will have coalitions that are just forged in fire, right? They just erupted from the night of protests, right? And in some ways we have the luxury of time to think and to rethink and to form coalitions that are way stronger than just, hey, you're here, I'm here, let's get together, right? So I'm gonna unmute this. And again, you're seeing, I brought this up early in the live stream, you're seeing like our television news take this more pro-police stance, and I don't get it. Take a more pro-police stance in how they cover things. They show a lot of B-roll that is very, without context, is very frightening. And I'm not saying that there wasn't any violence that night. I'm not saying that at all. I saw the Boogaloo Boys out there stirring up shit. I saw MAGA out there stirring up shit. And I'm not doing a Marjorie Taylor Greene thing where I'm saying, what about? I'm telling you what I saw. I'm telling you that I saw, the Hall's staff, shoot guns at unarmed protesters. I'm showing you what I saw. Police bringing a certain element of aggressiveness to a situation that was already highly combustible, and then you see the outcomes of that. Because how come you didn't see gas canisters during the day? And there were way more people out there, way more people, and way more skirmishes during the daytime, from what I was sent. Right? There were all these little skirmishes and whatnot. Right? But yet at night, very much fewer people, but yet an accelerated police force. Why was there more mayhem at night, right? And I'm seeing the Boogaloo Boys being recorded by a local photojournalist. I'm seeing people send me photos of somebody in the Bennett Hotel holding a gun and brandishing a gun at protesters. You're seeing certain things that ratchet up the violence, but you want to show the outcome, but you don't show what precipitated it, right? Shout out to all the Post and Courier reporters who did get it on their phone, but it didn't make it into the stories because especially those who have left the paper since, who were in real time filming what happened and actually talked about the guns in the hands of shop owners and other things like that. Shout out to all y'all. But anyway, I want to play this and I'm gonna dip.
I honestly didn't think folks would take to the street. I was
not this part.
Completely caught off guard.
Podcast host says demonstrations against excessive police force around the country made its way to Charleston. She said police attacked the crowd with military-style force.
I was deeply disturbed to see tanks come down the street. SWAT teams, barricade bridges, the images of militarized police force. These were unarmed protesters. Why is that happening? If they've got more funding, if they have more tools and tanks and militarized equipment, why are there more deaths at the hands of police officers, and not just Black people?
James Messenger says he was among the peaceful protesters that day.
See,
an LGBTQ conservative activist says he rushed
out here lying. The LGBTQ activist, he might be that, right? There are activists on both sides. They are actually they're feminists on both sides, right? So he can call himself he can call himself whatever he wants. But the fact that he's framing himself as like some sort of do-gooder out there, where he literally doesn't believe. I've heard him say at an Adam Dombey event at the library that he didn't believe in what the folks who like Denmark VC, and he shouldn't get recognition. And I've seen him challenge professors. I see him troll he was trolling West Ashley a week ago before a city council meeting. Like, he's a whole ass troll. And like, we keep platforming him because we don't like, I don't know if we just don't have like the awareness. You're not in the know. Like, I don't understand this, but then listen to what he says right here, and this is very important when we talk about police violence and decipher, like, to talk about like how to build your coalitions. You got to watch out for this bullshit.
To the streets in the wake of the George Floyd murder, but not because he believed Floyd's death was racially motivated.
See,
we could fix all of it if we fix the problem itself, which is police.
So they're anti-police. That's that like, it's this weird diagram of overlap, like this like Venn diagram of like libertarian, like a little bit of libertarian overhangs over here with the white nationalism, and then it overhangs over here with, like, it's just really weird. These cross sections of Boogaloo Boys, Proud Boys, and other white nationalists and like secessionists, right? You literally believe in secession, and you're out here and he said that he didn't take to this, like, how goofy you sound, and how goofy not challenge him on this, because I would have pushed back right there. Oh, I didn't go out there and protest because I felt like George Floyd was killed and it was racially motivated. I went out there because the police shouldn't have killed him. The fuck? And you still sitting there and nobody laughed you off, said cut, let's find somebody else, let's just find a white shop owner with conservative values, because you would have been better off doing that. You would have been better off finding a white shop owner with conservative values, and as opposed to listening to this dummy, and he don't even know what he believes or where he begins or where he stops. And this is important. So as we're fighting for justice and fighting to end the extrajudicial killings of Black people in Charleston, when we build our coalitions, we can't invite everybody at the table. We can't platform everybody. We can't entertain every goofy ass notion. Goofy is the new word of 2022. I'm trying to use that instead of stupid. We can't use, is that better? I think it is. We can't have janky math when it comes to this. And Tyler has been so fucking effective at popping up and in front of Black folks' face and saying, no. I'm with you guys. I'm with you. No, you're not human. You're subhuman. No, I'm gonna let my friend call you a triggered bitch. Call you a triggered bitch outside of King Claw Juicy Seafood and Bar, right? I'm gonna ride around the town with a flag that says "fuck Biden," because, you know, your bumper stickers weren't enough, right? You need a whole flag because you need attention, because you're sad and you're lonely, right? And you miserable and confused, and no one checks you on this shit. Sitting there with a whole ass award-winning journalist. Ain't nobody say, wait a minute, you don't believe that George Floyd was killed? You don't believe that death was racially motivated? You don't believe race was a factor? You just believe it was just police overreach? And you sitting there with a straight fucking face?
We know George Floyd. We know Dante Wright, because those cases are picked up and shown repeatedly. A year later, now we hate each other. Our country's on fire, and I'm a conservative. I have family in law enforcement. I'm a veteran myself. But I'll be the first one to tell you that, yes, police reform needs to happen.
And again, okay, so this came out May of 2021. Insurrection took place, and what day did this insurrection take place? Said he had already committed his crimes. He was already proven to be a traitor. He'd already pictured himself in selfies. He'd already done that, and we sitting here talking to him about fucking police violence? Y'all got to get better sources. Stop talking to Aaron Comstock and stop talking to insurrectionists. Let's cut it out. Anyway, all right, I'm gonna leave it there. two sides. And my whole thing, little mama, two-sided the right way. Two-sided with a conservative ass shop owner. I'd rather listen to the developer who brought the Bennett Hotel to Upper King. I'd rather listen to him than listen to someone, and he might have participated in insurrection. I don't know, but I'm a just guess that he did not go to DC and participate in that shit. Maybe. Just talk to him. Just talk to the mayor. Just talk to the police chief. That's it. You don't gotta talk to an insurrectionist that got sued into oblivion by Roy Willie for exploiting black kids. That's the other part. This is after insurrection, after he got sued for victimizing that little black kid and making that little black kid pose with secessionist propaganda. We still talking to this dude like he's a cogent voice? Oh yeah, I didn't even say December. What happened in December before the insurrection? Let me think. What happened in December before the insurrection? Oh yeah, the Proud Boys came to fucking King Street in a tank. Crickets from CVB. Crickets from anybody. And he co-led that. Tyler co-led that with KKK Corey. Yeah. Let's stop talking to violent white men who are hell-bent on a race war. Let's stop talking to them when we're talking about police violence. And now nobody knows what the fuck the issue is. Because you done follow me with that dude. You done follow me with that dude. It sound like we saying the same thing. We not. No. All right. Hey, Monique, who I will not confuse anymore. Hey, Monique. Yeah, I do think, Monique, I do believe that WCBD did that on purpose. Again, this is not to impugn the integrity of a Raphael James or of a Caroline Murray. Like, I really do. They are the voices, of Charleston. But they do, it feels like they make a number of, it feels like Caroline Murray specifically has more leeway in the development of stories that she showcases. It seems like she also has like enough, they give her like enough room to create her own stories and programming. And even the stories that appear on Facebook during like a Facebook Live panel that I've participated in, right? And I know from how she's reached out to me and how she's communicated with me, she's very thorough in how, okay, I'm building this out. I want you to participate, right? But it feels like we're in this constant, well, we got to do both sides, and we got to, like, even when the police are dead wrong, what did the Post and Courier write? Oh, well, Walter Scott shouldn't have run, right? Like, so we still are in this thing where we condition our responses that are just explicitly like, hey, police needs to be reined in. Police needs to be reined in. We don't need to have all these qualifying voices to kind of like soften that. Police need to be reined in a little bit. They take up the lion's share of the budget from the city, and we're talking about financial shortfalls into 2022. But yet we're not looking at, hey, you kill X amount of people, or you've injured X amount of people, or you've arrested how many kids, or you've apprehended underage people. We're not looking at that and holding them accountable. We're just justifying an increase in their budget, you know, with a couple of stories. Of course, summer 2020 was a big story. I'm not downplaying that, but the other stuff, you know, a crime happens every day around West Ashley, and we're seeing it. And it's not just black people committing these crimes, right? But yet there's this thing that the news is doing to feed this narrative that the police are doing the best they can, and they're just Mayberry, they're just out here Barney Fifing it up. They're not. Anyway. No, Carolyn doesn't push back. I think that's fair. She doesn't push back. Because I would have had my cameraman catch me on camera and says, but you participated in insurrection. How did you get from George Floyd protest to insurrection? I would have just asked him that. Because the story isn't where are we a year later? Are y'all cooled down now? Are y'all at peace? The story is a year later, damn, that was a lot. That was a whirlwind. What has changed? Like what type of outcomes are different? What type of coalitions have been forged? That's the story to me. That's the story, not, oh, let's talk to somebody who was there. You could talk to the chick from Krogan's. I don't know, like everybody was outside in some way, shape, or form except me. I was over in Mount Pleasant, not believing it would happen in Charleston. I swear to God, one of my worst guesses in life. I'm like, hey, ain't shit gonna happen in Charleston. Let me go to Abida Wild and get a new plant. That's exactly what I did. I remember too, coming back home, my soil on my balcony, like, oh, word, they really in the streets, huh? I was so surprised, right? Both siding lead the path to hell. Yep, Joni. Not delineating the sides at that, right? Yeah. Little mom, you dropped something in the chat in response to Joy. You said, what's the cutoff line of this? Are y'all gonna let what's her face come on saying the devil is posing? I know, posing, right? I got you. Devil possessing the council, right? The devil possessing the council, saying they want masks. I know, it's like nothing. Don't forget Harry, Kia. Right. If one side is complete horseshit, don't cover it. Exactly. Flat earthers and stuff, Joy. Like, there's no like Tyler. Like, if you didn't know he participated in insurrection, you know he ain't got no cogent political point of views. You know that by now. A cursory search, shit, just your channel covered it. Your peers in print media covered it. Dude is wild. Like, come on, the fuck out of here. They got YouTube. They all right over there, spewing lies and hatred and trying to dox black women. They all right. And that's the other part. Like, they so fucking gnarly and violent. Why are you talking to them? They dox mad people. They harass moms. They harass parents. Why are you talking to them? But that's Charleston. Fucking bar solo. All right. Oh, you not? Kid, you hard on us. Kid, you hard on... Kid, you hard on... You hard on... on a couple local faves. But let me tell you something, Kia. I appreciate you. And I'd rather you feel strong feelings than to not feel anything, because it's important. So whatever you picking up on, maybe you and I could text. But there's just too much whataboutism when it comes to police, especially after Walter Scott, especially after Jamal Sutherland. We got to chill with that. And at that point, this story aired in May. I mean, that was after Jamal Sutherland. Jamal Sutherland was killed, right before the New Year, right? Or at the New Year, right? It's after that is my point. It was after that. So we can chill on that old police. Oh, what can they do better? I don't know. Stop killing people. Right. Yeah. Harass. And yeah, how they harass Erica Coakley. That's exactly what I was thinking about. Right. El Cool J said, instead of straight reporting on events, the media still falls back on conflict and tension in the story. Right. People crave, and we're addicted to that. I'm gonna switch up camera because I really do. And we've become look at how wonky this shit is. Y'all don't even know. It's coming, El Cool J. The desk is coming. I swear to God. I just won my fantasy football too, so I got some cash. The desk is coming. One of my big meaty thighs is holding up this one side. It's not as easy as ordering, y'all, I swear. But yeah, text me some things, Kia, for sure. I lost my train of thought, but I'm gonna end it there. Really just hope that it made sense. Talking about the deciphering police data. Specifically, it wasn't even much to decipher with Charleston PD. It was so piss poor, y'all. But again, I'm gonna try to get some of these resources in one place, probably on Patreon. Sorry, don't get mad, but it's what it is. But I don't know, I'll figure it out. Maybe I'll give y'all like a sample. Maybe it'll be worth that. I don't know. Maybe I'll make it look pretty. But I'll try to put some of this data, these resources in one place so you can visit them, whatever. And like, oh, well, you know what? I'm tracking the police on the last police death which is gnarly, but you get what I'm saying? Like, you can be informed in your arguments about things. I think that's important. So police data, please don't challenge, push back, be curious. Let me say that way. Be curious, challenge the voices that you're hearing. Tomorrow, I think I want to spend time, or tomorrow I might have a court date. So I don't know if I might take off tomorrow. I think I have a court date, but I want to spend time on getting ready for January 11th. And also probably doing a little recap of January 6th. I kind of did a lot of it, kind of talked to it today. But a year later, today, the Post and Courier they played the shit out of it. Post and Courier did post a story, a front page below the fold at the bottom. Shout out Avery Wilkes and others. They did like a year recap to the insurrection. Oh, yeah. So I don't really want to talk about that, but I kind of do, because South Carolina had a whole caravan, and we still like acting like we don't know who was in the caravan and how it go and how it went and how we still acting weird with that. Like we don't know who our neighbors were. So I might talk about that, and I might not be able to be here tomorrow, but we'll figure it out. I gotta go fight that fugazi ass ticket, because I got an excellent driving record. We're gonna keep it that way. All right. You said what now? You nosy about what? Wait, did you? Oh, what? Did I hop over my bike shorts? Yes, I'm always wearing bike shorts or something else. Something short. I always have pants on, but the length is... You so silly, Kia. You so nosy. Anyway, thank y'all for your support. Thank you for the subs. Thank you for the cheers, the bits. Last week was phenomenal. Thank you for the support. I'll see you soon. Not sure if I see you tomorrow, but I'll see you soon. We got to get ready for January 11th. We got to strategize. We got to get ready for city council. Got to figure that out. All right. Talk to you later. Bye. Hopefully I have a new desk one day.